welcome to another serving of Nerd Takeout. This is going to be our
100th?
Yeah,
100th episode.
100th episode.
Hope you guys have been keeping up.
This is our. This will probably be our last episode before the holidays, before the new year.
Before
Really?
the holidays?
Before the
I'm pretty
holidays.
sure
Yeah,
it's...
yeah.
like-
So before the new year.
Probably, I don't
Definitely
know.
want to get a Django episode in pretty soon.
Yeah, we can do
Before
like...
the world
we can
ends.
even
Oh
take-
wait,
talk
that's
about
supposed
whatever,
to happen
you know.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should not.
That
be
was
here.
awkward.
It sucks to be you, world.
Or us.
So
For mine.
in this episode, we're going to talk about The Hobbit
They ended a long time
at
ago.
great lengths. One of the most anticipated movies
Of all
the
time.
Of
year.
forever?
Of all time.
All time.
Until
Since
the world
2003.
Yep.
And so we're going to be talking about that. I know we brought it up a lot on the podcast, just as like something that we were all I think we all kind of generally agreed that we were all looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about that. But first, before we roll into that, does anybody have anything that they played, watched, read this week that they want to talk about?
I finished season 1 and 2 of the BBC TV show Sherlock.
Oh, it's so good.
It is
Finch.
it is amazing. Like,
You know that's the same dude that does Doctor Who, so
Yeah.
maybe you should just watch
Yeah, no.
Doctor Who.
No,
I know, I'm gonna watch
I've watched.
Sherlock.
I've
And
watched
you know
Doctor
he's
Who.
going to do the voice of Small.
Yeah. Oh, I knew
Yeah,
that already.
yeah. Totally worth
Every
it.
episode, I'm like, oh, perfect choice because he's like, and I'm like, yeah.
It's exactly.
It's awesome. I don't know. He's. I love that portrayal of Sherlock Holmes. It's like
it's a really
an
good
interesting
show.
take, and it's just
How many?
It's amazing.
How
it's
many
so
episodes
good.
is that show? Because they're all like
There's
an hour
6,
long
but they're all an hour and a half long.
An hour and a half. Okay,
So
I know
there's
who
two-
First
there's-
episode's like 88.
They're 88
Yeah,
minutes
it's
apiece.
2 series.
Yeah.
That's what they call
Okay,
them. So.
okay.
And season 3
So
or
is
series
season
3.
1,
Series 1.
series 1. So no, I mean that's
Yeah.
like the
All
show.
right.
This show Skins is a UK show
Yeah.
in their series.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
seasons.
Yep.
But so the first episode that's 88 minutes. Is that an
Yes.
entire case? Or
Yes.
that's-
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
But
one
what they-
case every time.
Yeah, what they do is...
There's an overall
Right,
story
right,
arc,
right.
but he breaks down one case every time. And they take some of the titles, like from the old school actual Arthur Conan Doyle's, like the titles from the stories that he wrote with him. They
Right.
kind of they play on those, and
Yeah,
we
they're
get
all
to
they're all
relive
takes
those
on the
fun
actual
things,
like
on the actual stories that were
Sherlock
written.
novels. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not Sherlock in name only.
No.
no, it's pretty much like everything. They say it's based off of Conan Doyle's works, but it literally is like
It's on.
almost
just modern
word
day
for word. It
almost.
is just yeah.
Which is weird because I had like this very meta thought about that show. Like this show exists in a world where like Sherlock Holmes didn't exist in like novel form like
Right.
previously, and that's I guess it's kind of weird
That
to
is
like
weird.
think about.
Mhm.
Right.
They can't like allude to like like
Yeah.
things. I don't know.
It's
I
an
thought that
amazing
was
show, though, man.
strange, but
It's
yeah,
so
it's a
good.
really good
It
show.
is so good.
The acting is
I
phenomenal.
guess that's what I'll watch next.
Dude,
I've been
you
hearing.
need
I
to.
mean, I'm
You
sure
need
I'll
to.
like it.
You
It's
finished
so
watching
good.
it?
Yeah,
What do you
I
think
finished.
of
Don't say.
Moriarty?
Oh yeah, I'll punch anyone.
He's weird.
But like as an actor, that dude,
He's creepy, but it's weird.
it's very strange.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good
well
stuff.
then there you go, Sherlock. Yeah, I put it on the other day, and I'm just like, it's 88 minutes. I'm like, not really in the mood to watch on these 88 minutes. But,
Dude, once you get started though, you're
Oh
like,
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's good.
I started reading. I started reading. I'm almost done with Life of Pi. I think there's like 400 pages. I'm
That
on
book
like
is amazing.
330 something. It's a really good book. Definitely hard to read in spots.
Mhm.
For sure, hard to read in spots.
Yep.
It's
It's not because it's bad, because
no,
the
not
material
because it's bad,
is
but because
rough.
I mean, like it's about like kids surviving, and
Yeah.
like so like when you're in a life or death survival situation, you just have to do things that are
it's very
intense.
graphic.
Yeah, it's quite graphic. I hadn't seen the movie. Ang Lee is a very capable director.
Guess
though.
I'll read that too soon.
You need to.
Oh yeah,
Everyone should.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good book. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say that there were parts that I thought were a little slow,
Mhm.
but for what it is, it's he does a lot with it, and there's a lot of cool stuff that happens in it. So, anybody else have anything they want to say that people should watch, read?
I actually, doing all these Christmas sales and stuff like that, I've tried not to pick up too much. I picked up a whole bunch of iOS games, just random ones. But I also picked up Saints Row the Third, the full package.
Yeah.
It was on sale for like $25 at Best Buy, and I picked it up because me and a friend wanted to go through it in co-op, which I actually wasn't aware was full co-op
Yeah.
the whole way through.
Full co-op, yeah.
That game is really, really, really fun in full
yeah.
co-op. Like, not just beating people with purple dildos that, like, bounce and everywhere we do stuff, but, like, the full package comes with, like, a broomstick that you can fly around on in the game, or, like, a a man cannon where you drive around a vehicle, and every time you run over someone, they get sucked up into a cannon, and you can just shoot them out onto the street.
Or other people or like vehicles to blow them
that
up.
game is just consistently fun. Like, it opens up with you being able to, like, you skydive and stuff, but then you're able to call in, like, drone strikes like Call of Duty, and that's like an unlockable weapon where at any point in the game you can pull up a drone strike and it shows that, like, above this, you know, like, up in the sky view, and you can just shoot missiles down and blow up whole groups of people. Like, the game just continuously tries to be more fun than it does always.
And it just, like, keeps one-upping itself.
Yeah,
You're like, how can this get more ridiculous? And like, oh, that's how.
Oh, yeah,
It's weird, like, seeing that and then go playing the first one, you're like, first one,
it was
tried
like
too hard to be like
GTA,
GTA.
And the second one, they
it
got
was
away
bad.
with some of that
Sucked
stuff,
in
and they
like
were like, oh, but you have this cool posse, so you can have ninjas or, like, you know, preppy frat guys come out and beat everybody up with you. And then they just keep
and then it's
adding
just, like,
to that.
got ridiculous.
Yeah, and it is amazing.
Yeah.
So, Saints Row. Play that game. That game is awesome. More people should play that. Port HQ.
Yeah.
Sucks to be them.
Hey, didn't they just declare? Didn't they shut up?
I'm sure they'll be fine. There was a big rumor today about Ubisoft buying a lot of their assets out, and
I'd be okay
which
with
would
that.
probably be the best bet.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Ubisoft's right there at, like, the only other publisher that's not EA or Activision, and I feel like Ubisoft could actually probably manage a lot of that and keep a lot of those people.
I think so.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting to do.
I haven't been playing too much. There's a Steam holiday sale, and I picked up this indie game called Legend of Grimrock.
That game is awesome.
Yes, it's just like the old school like Super Nintendo like Dungeons and Dragons type games where it's like a dungeon crawler, like RPG style, and
That's awesome. It was really cheap too, right? It was like
it was like $3.
Yeah, it was like something like that.
So you're basically like navigating a maze of dungeon and killing enemies and leveling up and stuff. It's challenging too, like figuring things
That
out.
reminds me, I need to play through Binding of Isaac that I picked up last year and
Yeah, you should probably do that.
forgot to go through all the way through that.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff on the Steam summer sale. Holiday sale. You can get like The Witcher 2 for like $11.
Worth it.
Yeah.
If you are capable of downloading that is worth it. It's 100% worth it.
Roller Coaster Tycoon
Is
3
awesome.
Platinum.
I don't know about that one's awesome.
Well, I mean, it's the full package thing.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, that one's only like $15 right now. I recommend that. I don't know. There's a lot. You should go check that out. I haven't been playing too much other than that. I've been working.
You've been too busy thinking about The Hobbit.
Yes.
And how deeply it affected.
Perfect segue, Neil.
I know, right?
So speaking of The Hobbit, let's talk about it.
One
All right.
third of it.
So yes, a third of it. So The Hobbit, directed by Peter
An Unexpected
Jackson,
Journey.
written by Peter Jackson.
You have to say The Unexpected Journey.
Oh, that's right, The Hobbit, The Unexpected Journey, because we still have the desolation of Smaug,
And they're back again.
There and back again.
Yeah.
to look forward
Which is the
to.
actual subtitle of the
I
book.
was about to say, yeah.
I almost brought my copy that was printed like in the 50s.
In case we didn't believe him, but
That's true. I have my copy that I got while working at EB Games in 2004 that came with the shitty Hobbit game that came on PS2.
Dude, okay, that Hobbit, I love that game. I really did.
That's probably why you love the movie.
I know. It was so good. It was so
because it said
fun.
The Hobbit. Here's the question to ask yourself in regards to that game, and probably later in regards to the movie. If that game had nothing to do with The Hobbit, would you have liked the game?
It did have nothing to do with The Hobbit. I also,
But so it wasn't. I never played the game.
It did have everything to do with the Hobbit. I don't get it.
the game?
From what I remember,
Wow, that shows a lot. Let's keep going.
Okay, all right. So The
was,
Hobbit
like, the
was
battle.
released last week.
King
Peter
of the
Jackson,
Precious.
written by Peter Jackson and other
Irony,
people.
right? You like that?
This project had been in development for a while. It was Guillermo del Toro was going to direct it, then he dropped out, and then Peter Jackson did it, and so now.
Every time
we
I
have-
saw his name on the credits, dude.
Yeah, he was credited as a writer.
I know, I saw it.
he must have written the Zipline Goblin. That's a very Del Toro thing. The Zipline Goblin. Remember that one? Someone made a Facebook fan page from that character. You remember the Zipline Goblin?
Yeah.
How did you not remember
It's
that?
like
You
the
sent him
messenger
off,
thing. Like,
He's like, send a message to this guy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I do remember.
That's
that.
very
That's
Del
such a him-
Toro.
Yeah, he totally.
It's a very Del Toro thing to me.
Okay, all right.
You should write Del Toro and ask him that.
Did you do the Zipline
He's
Goblin?
probably listening to the podcast. He'll just answer us.
Yeah, right. All right,
He's
so
huge.
we're gonna break it down, go into different segments. So I want to start off on something that's probably going to be a little bit more of a amicable topic, and then we can get into maybe some of
The
more
music.
the stuff that that's not an amicable
Oh.
topic. So how do you think? We'll start with Martin Freeman specifically. How do you think he did as Bilbo?
I really liked
I
it.
think he did excellent. I enjoyed his portrayal.
Did
of
it
Bilbo.
bother you that he looked so much younger, despite the fact that in the book it was more like he was? You know what I mean? He wasn't supposed to show that much of an age, or did that not bother you at all?
What do you mean?
Like in the book, it was always like commented on that he didn't really age that much. Like physically, he wasn't looking that old. I thought from when he was originally Bilbo.
That's because of the ring. You talking about when he gets the ring?
Yeah, but like he's
keeps
like
him young.
super older when you see him later on than he is.
Like in Lord of the Rings in the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
Right.
He's asked,
I was just asking, does that bother you?
No, not
I mean, I
really.
get it. I just, there were people complaining about that. It doesn't
60-year
bother
gap,
me.
but
But yeah,
I mean, I don't think he
mean,
looks
it's like
super
111
old.
or
Yeah, it's not like you can get that one dude to
Yeah.
freaking.
No, I like the guy
It would look-
too. I was
it would
just
look-
wondering.
I think it worked well for that movie. You couldn't
Yeah.
you couldn't have what Ian was his name?
No.
Ian Holm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't
That's
know.
fair.
They would
just
they
wouldn't-
would
it
end up
wouldn't have worked.
digitizing his face and make him look young. Would just be weird.
I think it worked for
Really, that would have been right up that movie's alley.
It'd be like Tron.
Oh god.
Sorry.
that was
Not as distracting as Tron. That was awful.
But no, I like Martin Freeman. I like him as an actor too. We were
Yeah,
talking
I
about,
really
talking
liked
about
him, too.
Sherlock, and he does.
I think his Freemanisms were a good choice for that role.
He does.
Bilbo.
Yeah, he had very good little facial expressions. He has
Yeah.
very good no.
Holding
Like,
up his finger, he's like,
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
He was entertaining to watch.
He was, and I thought he did a really good job contrasting with all the dwarves.
Yeah.
Whoever played, what's his name?
Thorin Oakenshield.
Oakenshield. I thought he did a good job.
Yeah.
And I thought they had a good. They're two very different kind of people.
Right.
And I thought that they did a good job. I mean, I just thought like as actors they had a good contrast
Right.
and a good relationship.
Yep.
And then of course, I mean, Ian McKellen.
Oh yeah, I mean,
like he just
has
is.
anybody been like Ian McKellen's not a good actor?
I don't think
He's
so.
so subpar.
He makes me
no
want
one
to take
ever.
off my clothes, like when we're watching the screen.
He might like that.
Oh, I know. That's why I do
Wow.
But no, I mean, I think he did.
Process.
I mean, I think everybody did a good job. I think the dwarves. There's a lot of them, and I don't think I had a firm grasp on who was who.
It's just like the book, like
It's, yeah,
Right.
it's, you really only get to know Feely, Keely,
Thorin, obviously.
Thorin, Balin, and Dwalin. That's pretty much the only ones you really get to know in the book, anyways. The rest are kind of background, and those were the only ones that really had major. Everyone had a line except for Bombur.
Yeah,
He just
fat the
they
whole
just
time.
threw food in his mouth the whole time,
Right.
but everyone had at least one line.
So why? Okay, so who was the one? I think he was the archer. Why did he look so radically different
Keely?
than everyone else?
I don't know why they decided to make
But
him
you know what
look
I'm
young.
talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one
He
with
didn't
like.
look-
I mean,
with
he
like,
just-
there was
I
like
mean-
no makeup. It almost looked like
Right.
there was no
Yeah,
makeup.
I guess
Right.
he's younger. I
His-
guess he's not the
two
youngest,
younger
but
ones. Yeah.
like
His brother had facial hair, but it wasn't a lot. It was like a mustache thing. It wasn't like a full beard. I don't know,
He didn't have those like
like
the
a big
nose
nose or
costume,
anything.
those Halloween costume level makeup like things on him. He looks like a normal person.
It could have just been
I
a
don't-
younger thing though.
I guess they're
yeah,
trying to
so
make him
far.
look younger. I don't know. I don't know why they decided to do that.
I mean, it didn't bother me. It was actually
It didn't bother me.
At least it distinguished him, I guess. Maybe that was
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
of the goal.
It's, I mean, he's more memorable that way. That's why we're talking about him right now.
Yeah,
They want him to stand out.
he was the only. I could stand looking at him.
Right.
So there you go. There's that. So I mean, does it? I mean, so it's okay. So since we're on, well, we'll get to that one a little bit. Yeah. I mean, overall, I think the acting was good, and all the characters from Lord of the Rings that came back who served such a amazing purpose in this movie. I thought they all did good.
Did y'all like the opening? Like the way they did that with Bilbo and Frodo?
I thought it was
Yeah,
fine.
so, yeah.
No, I thought
Yeah.
it tied in the whole Lord of the, to remind the people who might have like not actually put that together and stuff like that. That does a good job with that.
I like how they did the.
It wasn't like insulting.
You get to
me.
recognize the birthday party sign, the no admittance thing, so you kind of
Yeah.
know. And then Frodo was like, "All right, I'm going to go wait
Just
for
in
Gandalf,"
case.
and that's the very beginning of
Yeah.
Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, I thought that was fine. I mean, that would be the first of 20 million times in this movie they felt like they needed to remind you of that. But yes, I think that. Yeah, that was fine, and I didn't mind the. I thought they did a good job with the flashback, like explaining small.
Oh, the backstory and everything. Yeah,
all
yeah.
that.
I thought that was a good job. I enjoyed watching that. Usually, like scenes like that, you're like, oh, come on, let's just get to it. But you know,
And I'm so glad they didn't like fully like show the dragon. They just like kind of
Yeah,
showed
right.
his tail and like
I did
a
like
shadow
that.
and
I do
like
like whenever they
and
yeah,
flame
I like
balls
that.
flying
Let-
at people.
well,
You're like,
they
oh
left
shit.
some mystery to like
Right.
what we're going.
like
to
we
see.
obviously have like this idea of what Smaug should kind of look like, I guess.
Right.
At least, yeah.
I mean, everybody
Most
has their
people
like
should.
like typical
Like from the
dragon.
animated movie.
Yeah, like,
Well, in the
dragon.
animated movie in the 70s, he looked like a lion. Like they gave him like a beard, sort of. It looked weird.
So
Or a cat. He was more like a
Well,
cat.
he
It was
didn't
weird.
have Benedict Cumberbatch's voice, so
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but he
what
he made it to the credits.
He
the
did.
First
He was
one.
in the credits.
He was in the
and
credits.
He was not in.
He
I
was.
saw that.
Yeah.
And he was not.
He wasn't in the movie at all.
No, he well, I guess not really.
But his tail.
I wonder if they used
His
his body
eye
as the
was-
necromancer's
Yeah, I
shadow.
was
I
about to
guess
say.
I don't know.
That's what I
That
was
would be the
wondering,
only thing I
like-
can think of.
They're probably just recycling credits.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, let's just, put on the back of all
I
three.
don't feel like really typing this. Yeah.
I
Use the
mean, we're gonna
delete
do
button.
three
Like part of
now,
his
right? So
contract.
just
so
say-
I
He showed
have
up
to
a
be in
bit,
all three,
like-
check.
All
I
right.
did stuff that got cut.
So
though, like,
one of the
probably an
things
extended
that
scene.
probably the main thing I want to talk about. Well, not the main thing. I mean, it's up to y'all if y'all want to discuss other things. So,
Nope.
going into this, so Lord of the Rings was an epic trilogy. I mean, even if you don't like it, just the style of it, the things that happen, the battles and the fights and the characters, it was all a very epic style thing.
Yep.
as the books were.
As the books were, yeah. And a lot of the thing about going into The Hobbit, a lot of people were like, well, I don't think people are going to know that, The Hobbit's not that. And, it's just a cool little adventure story. It's it's not like Lord of the Rings. And then there's like, okay, well, now they're making 2 Hobbit movies. Or how are they going to stretch The Hobbit? Or how are they going to stretch The Hobbit over 3? And one of the things that bothered me the most about this movie was that I felt like I went into the movie with the understanding that The Hobbit is not a big, epic adventure. It's not. It's a small adventure story. And I felt like when watching the movie, I felt like there was probably a conversation where the studio's like, all right, Pete, we're going to go ahead and greenlight The Hobbit. I said, okay. We want at least 2 movies out of this. Well, but you understand it's like a small... Yeah, but we need to figure something out. We need to make this epic, Pete. We need to make this epic, like Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And so to me, the whole movie just smacked of like...
Well, hence the opening with that whole big battle that you just said you liked, and a lot of that
Well,
stuff
but
was
that
made.
had-
I mean, it was but that it does like the bigger picture epicness thing within the movie.
Well,
was.
and I didn't mind that because that's setting up the story for The Hobbit. But whenever you have these things where it's like, well, okay, so we're going to be on the run here. What are we going to do? Oh, I know. Let's throw some orcs at him real quick. Okay, that's cool. Let's throw some orcs here.
Couple of
Okay,
times.
we're going to walk a little bit. Oh, I know. Rock monsters. Let's throw some rock monsters at him right here. Okay, cool. Okay, what next? Oh, I know. We'll do this. We'll add this little cool fight scene here. Oh, I know. Let's burn some trees down and have them do like a really big fight in the trees. That's cool, right? And ultimately, it's just like,
I didn't feel like that.
No.
Yeah.
Of course, that
You
was
wanna
in
feel
the.
that, Andrew?
No, I mean that was like in the original books.
lot of
That's
that stuff-
Tolkien's pacing. So I don't know. And the fact that
but a lot of that, how much of that was
A lot.
actually in the book?
A lot of
A
it
lot.
was.
everything but
now
Azog.
wait. Now a lot of them were a sentence or 2 sentences,
Okay.
and stretched out to be like the rock giant, which I liked.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I like rock
Right.
giants.
Right.
I think if you're gonna make a movie, make fucking awesome rock
Right.
giants. I'm okay with that.
So you're pro rock giant.
No, I totally am. But again, I feel like that was someone being like, okay, we see this, we can make this into some really cool scene.
Right.
We can blow our CG budget on this instead of the other shit in the movie and make it look awesome. And I feel like
See, but I just
I'm
don't
okay
think it
with that.
looked like But I
The
guess that
rock
was my-
scene?
Yeah, I didn't like the rock
Maybe if
scene.
it was
Okay.
in 3D at the IMAX by yourself at night, it would have looked awesome.
At 1:15
I just
in the
thought
morning.
it was so like, and I think one of the
You really
things,
didn't like the rock? Now I'm
I
upset.
really didn't like the rock scene.
Wait, why? I want to talk about
think,
this.
and the thing is, like, ultimately, the
No,
rock
wait.
scene wouldn't
Okay.
have bothered me as much. One of the big problems I had, and I was reading a
A
review
fear of giant
and-
rocks.
No, I mean I don't mind. Like I just didn't feel like I'm like okay, giants. It's ultimately the thing about the movie, and I don't feel like Lord of the Rings did this, is that at no point in the movie did I ever fear for any of the characters' lives. That I think anything bad was ever going to happen to them at any point in this movie.
In The Hobbit you're talking about?
In The Hobbit.
Well,
So I'm like, okay, there's giant rock monsters and they're throwing rocks and
I
oh
didn't-
no, watch out. And
Well,
I was
me
just like-
personally, I didn't remember if any of the stupid dwarves died in that part of the movie. Like, me. So me, I was like, man, one of these dwarves is
Like,
gonna
man,
die.
they all just got squished
because
against that
that
mountain.
doesn't make any sense
But
because they're fighting on giant rocks.
But I knew that, and so the whole movie, I just felt like it was just it's
if you
just
would,
safe. It's just
yeah,
safe.
but if
the
you
whole
would,
movie.
if you wouldn't have read
Well-
the book, you wouldn't have known that.
Right.
But I feel like I would have. Just
What?
based on the tone of the movie, I'm like, this is gonna
But
be.
the- but
This is
there's-
just.
I mean,
But
too
there
there's
were
no way-
giant
there's no way to
rock
say that, though.
monsters. Why would you say they obviously they're gonna make that? That doesn't make any sense.
because I just felt like that's the kind of movie that it was. That was the kind of tone in the movie where they were like, oh, well, it's the happy, fun movie, and everybody's going to make it. And I know, like, towards the... Well,
I don't even feel like what you're saying. I think tonally that was part of the thing to me that was weird about the movie, was that I didn't feel like it was a happy go fun movie, but they would inject happy go fun things while it is a happy go fun book.
I thought it
to
was,
me like it's more like
he wrote it for his kids.
Right,
Kid.
but exactly. But the movie felt like it was like epic, dark, boom battle, boom orcs.
To do that, he was trying to like. I guess he didn't want to alienate it so much from like the Lord of the Rings movies.
No,
I think he mashed
totally
out that.
just
Yes,
like that.
I think that's what he needed to do to make it complete, like
So
a complete adventure. I guess.
Well, I guess my thing is like, okay, so and that's interesting.
Like the unexpected journey.
Yeah,
but the thing is, like you said, so like so the Hobbit, the book, and ultimately to me, it's like, well, I don't know, like he kind of like, I felt like with this, I don't want to say he threw the book to the wind, but I felt like making a movie that was going to make as much money as The Lord of the Rings was a much bigger concern to him than what the actual Hobbit, what the story even was. And so to me, it's kind of like, all right, well there were funny moments, and then like you said, there'd be like, epic, scary, and it was just kind of like, it's not epic, scary, it's not not
to
really
me,
funny.
It's one complaint I can agree was that I never felt like again tonally I felt like it was trying to go for a lot more of the Lord of the Rings style to where I know someone brought up to me, like I voiced some of my issues with the movie, and they were saying how a lot of that stuff is maybe just to fit in with, you know, the Lord of the Rings, right? Like which was their goal, was to kind of fit in with that. And I feel like that does lose some of the things that I liked when I was younger about reading The Hobbit.
Yep.
But it didn't stop me from enjoying the movie as a whole. But I do think the tonal thing was weird. Like the songs in the movie when they're singing me. Like, I liked them, right?
I like
that was cool.
Absolutely.
Did feel kind of weird, like, some of the transitions, just how, to me, like, just how it was done. I don't know. The whole tone was weird.
I could say it felt awkward, but, I mean, the Hobbit movies came
songs.
out after The Lord of the Rings, but whenever Tolkien wrote The Hobbit, he had no idea The Lord of the Rings would ever exist. He showed someone the story of The Hobbit, they're like, what's a Hobbit? Like, I want more. He's like, oh.
Sweet.
Well, I guess I'll go write something, I guess. And then he came out with Lord of the Rings. Like, he had no intention of making The Hobbit epic. But I think if he knew...
He did go back. They did go back and tie in more things later on.
Yeah, with the Silmarillion.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So, I mean,
which is an epic...
Exactly.
Pretty epic book.
Is kind of what we're seeing. Yeah.
So I think if he had a plan of knowing he's going to write The Lord of the Rings when he was writing The Hobbit, it would have been more of an epic time.
See, but I mean, that's fine to say that. Mm-hmm. Like, we can sit here and say that.
But he actually did rewrite stuff later on.
Yeah.
We're not just conjecturing.
But I'm just saying, like, but that doesn't... I just felt like with the movie, it's like... It was, you know, we had this conversation when The Amazing Spider-Man came out. And one of my biggest problems with The Amazing Spider-Man was, like, where you want to be, like, a dark, serious film, or do you want to be like, Spider-Man, it's funny, I'm going to do a super cool slam dunk.
You were the only one here who that bothered, though.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Because that didn't make any sense to me there. Here, I can kind of see it.
Well, it's the same kind of thing to me, where they're trying to do this juggling act with the movie, and every time it just was like, all right, well, what's going on here? I mean, who are you trying, like... I know you want to please the studios, but then you want to make it kind of family friendly, and we want to be like more like Lord of the Rings.
I actually think that's my problem. I actually think, and I did read they did kind of get criticized for this later on, but I think they missed that whole family friendly boat more in here because it was.
I kind of agree.
There were some really dark.
There was an
violent...
Azog thing holding up a dwarf's head. I'm like, wait, this is a kid's movie.
You're like, what?
Like, are they going for dark? Or are they going for like fun?
And from the very
because he was like rolling a head down a mountain. I was like, wait a minute.
And I think if it would have just maintained that kind of dark tone the whole time, I really wouldn't have had a problem. I was like, okay,
I think I do think it did go back and forth. That I
and even then, like coming back to the rock monsters and really coming back.
If you say anything bad about the rock monsters,
it just looked. I'm sorry.
I like the rock.
Scene looked silly. It just looked silly.
Like God of War silly, because that's just what it felt like to me. It was like the beginning of God of War 3. Spoilers. That there's just like big titan. Like it didn't. It looked fine.
I mean,
that was the least of my worries about shitty CGI.
That's basically in the book.
Right.
I'll give you that.
No,
but it's because all the colors were so pale in that scene, you couldn't see.
They're in a
how
mountain
bad
area.
In a mountain at
well,
night.
that's what I'm saying. Like, so you couldn't see. Like, so later when we go into like the Goblin Cave and there's more details because of the area that you're in, you could really see that. Like,
Again, I was so mesmerized in the 3D that I really don't know what you're talking about.
And so, like, I get it. I'm not saying that, like, it shouldn't have looked that way whenever they were climbing up the mountain. It obviously should have, because they were climbing up a mountain and it was raining and it was dark.
Right.
So that's why the rocks, I think, as far as CGI go, were easier to take because they could hide the details and the shadows and the darkness. and stuff like that.
Just since brought up CGI, like how did y'all feel about the
Well,
CGI?
well, that's
a whole. Okay,
that's
keep
a
going.
whole-
Keep going.
That's probably an hour-long
Keep
conversation.
going. Keep going.
That's a whole thing.
I'm
Yeah.
not
But
participating.
I think one of the points was that at no point in the movie, I guess because I knew that, because I felt like they were, even though it got dark in some parts, I really felt like he kept trying to bring it back to like happy. There was no point in the movie where I ever feared for the characters. So if they're rocks kneeling down, I know they're all going to be on the other side. I know they're all going to make it out of the Goblin Cave. The only time in the whole movie where I thought, oh wait, they might bite the dust, is when they're hanging off the tree at the end, at the very end of the movie. And then the eagle comes and saves them. And I knew that I felt like the eagle was probably going to be the transition into the next film. I was like, I think like that's probably going to be.
And it's a good moment to stop. It really, I mean,
right.
If they're even going to split into two movies, I can't think, even like what's coming up after that, I can't think of a better place to stop.
I was really wondering going in where they were going to stop, because I was just like,
Well, they did like the whole like I'm going to end this movie 5 times thing.
Yep.
And again, I have a note to that, but I was like, are they going to pull to the Eagles? No. Oh, they're going to pull. No. Okay, we are going to the Eagles. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And and then they even went a little past the Eagles.
It did go past the Eagles.
It kept going. But anyway, so like, and I think that was a big thing for me in this movie was it was just like what do you want to be? Like, make up your mind. Just like make up your mind, and that drove me. That was a pretty big.
But
it didn't bother me.
I think that's because I think in the end what they decided on is they wanted it to be fan service.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah,
That's why
you could tell that movie is for the
like,
fans.
in the end,
absolutely.
I think that's what they decided. Like, we're not gonna do. We're not gonna please these. We're not gonna please that. We just do fan service,
Right.
and I feel like they don't.
Well.
They didn't really fail on that.
No, I agree.
And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a huge Tolkien fan. I've
Right.
read the stuff. I appreciate what it is. I played a lot of the other sub stuff, but yeah, I feel like it's definitely
a fan movie. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When the credits rolled, I was like, that felt like more for the fans than anybody else to me.
That music was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, the music's good. Like, I enjoy the music.
Every time that dwarf, whatever
The new
shit-
theme
Oh,
they
the
have,
mountain
that
song.
thing,
yeah.
I just want to blare that
We got a new
every
thing.
day.
Like,
Yeah.
I like
true.
the music, except and it all goes back to that thing where it felt like I like the music that they wrote for this movie. I like the music that they wrote for Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
What I didn't like was them injecting. I mean, when you see the ring, like that's fine because I like
That's
the song.
that's the Ring
because
theme,
it's the
right?
same.
Yeah.
You said it's the Ring thing. But every now and then they're like, Lord of the Rings music, just to remind you that this is still part of Lord of the Rings. And I'm like,
Whatever.
Come on,
I
It
mean,
wasn't-
they had, like,
it wasn't that much,
They
though.
had
It
like
was
the
like-
Shire theme, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
could, they have their themes that they
And that-
have.
yeah,
and-
yeah.
But anytime you saw the like the dwarves with
Goes
yeah,
going
like,
across some
there's-
landscape mountains.
They always had the dwarf theme. Like that was like their theme. I think they did a
I
good
like
job of
Bum, bum,
injecting the new
bum.
music and
Yeah.
introducing you into this new like theme song, I guess almost.
Mhm.
So I think they already had like these like themes set for like these different locales. Like you have your Shire, you have the Ring, and things like that.
The only questionable music part for me was so awkward. Is at the end, whenever they're all hanging on the tree and Thorin stands up to go fight Azog. The song that they chose there was the Nazgul song theme. I'm like, like they play that whenever the enemies are closing in around the hobbits in Lord of the Rings, which is you can kind of see why because they play that song when there's a bad guy around. But whenever Thorin stood up all epically, which was awesome, they played that song. That was just a weird song choice for me, and that was like my only issue with the song choice in the whole movie. Everything else I was fine with.
Did you have something you wanted to?
No.
I think, and to kind of like, I guess to kind of bring this point to a close, like probably I had 2 or 3 things that I would consider like major issues for me that ultimately like kept like distracted me from the overall enjoyment of the film, and one of them was how superfluous I thought certain things were for no other reason than the fact that, well, we want to remind you this is like Lord of the Rings. Like, I didn't mind at the beginning with Ian, and I liked that they ended it right where Gandalf was pulling up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I didn't have a problem with that. I'm like, okay, that's fine, that's cool. But then, like, when you go over to, like, Rivendell, and we have this thing with, like, okay, we have the necromancers and all this kind of stuff that had nothing to do, like, literally nothing to do with the search for Smaug, which is what the story of the film was about. I'm just like, the only reason you
And
have
that was
this here...
completely added, right? Like the whole
Yeah,
song
that's
thing,
Silmarillion
all that
appendices.
stuff.
It's from the
Appendices and
appendices.
Silmarillion.
The white. That's
Yeah.
called.
But
They're
I
called the
don't-
White
but my
Council.
thing
I'm
is
thinking,
though,
but
like-
like added to like either way, it was like added to the Hobbit at some other point, right? That wasn't
It's
really.
That was not
it's
in the
again
Hobbit.
tying into the Lord of the
Correct.
Rings.
No,
lore.
correct.
Technically, that did happen during the time of the Hobbit. Because
Yes.
in the Hobbit, Gandalf, at many points, especially after the Eagles drop him off,
yeah,
he's like,
he chilled.
"Hey, I got some business."
Yeah, he
Because he
leaves.
sees the ring, and
I
he said,
remember.
"He's like, because he sees
Right.
Bilbo has the ring, he doesn't say anything, doesn't call him out."
Right.
He says, "I have to go handle some business." Dwarves are like, "Wait, what?" And that's like a huge part of the story. The dwarves are left alone without Gandalf. He finally can't come in and just help him now at this certain point, and he's off. He's handling business with the White Council because
Yeah.
it needs to be handled. Obviously, it's I don't want to
Yeah,
spoil
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
Well, but I mean, and that's, but I guess my whole problem is like, it's like, well, that was in, but that's not. I mean, that's fine that it happened over here in the appendices and in its own story. It's like, but what story are you telling? Because
But again, I think he's
it's
telling fan service for the whole.
It's to
entire
tie.
thing.
It's to connect
Lord of the
more
Rings,
to
yeah.
Lord of the Rings, which I'm
which
perfectly
it,
fine
it
with.
works better that way, in my opinion.
When I
honestly.
watched, when, see,
It
when I
actually
watched
it
the movie,
answered more
that
questions
didn't
for me
bother
when I read when I
Yes.
was just stuck with the books as a kid. I was like, wait a minute, why is Gandalf going off somewhere? And I was like, I don't want to read through the appendices. Like, it's an appendix. I don't want to read through that shit. I'm just glad it's finally on film what actually happened during The Hobbit. It answered more questions for me, honestly, than what I had as a kid. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think overall it's doing a better job of tying those two things together, those two adventures.
and obviously,
Like,
this movie's going to work better as a part of a
you'll,
whole.
You'll keep
The
seeing
Hobbit-
more pieces work
The
together
Hobbit,
as the other two movies
was
come out.
completely written through Bilbo's perspective, right? Like,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like
right?
a-
Like that
he's
is
an
what it
observer.
is, right? So
Yeah.
it is more like, so you wouldn't have seen that in the book anyway, right? Because you
Yeah.
wouldn't
Right,
see
exactly.
where Gandalf
Like,
was,
you
so it would have
wouldn't
been.
know.
One thing I did like about the movie, I noticed, like, whenever a lot of times Bilbo was on the adventure, even in the book, but he kind of didn't talk a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
It'd just be about the dwarves. But even whenever Gandalf would be having a conversation with the dwarves, like they would do camera shots of Bilbo, like what Bilbo's looking at, like the faces he's making when he's listening to this conversation. And they did that in the movie really well. Like this is called The Hobbit, so I guess we need to have more shots of Bilbo in there.
Well, he had a
whenever the
bigger-
dwarves are even off.
he was
having
also
it.
like more
But see, I feel like,
heroic
Right,
and it
well,
wasn't
yeah.
something necessarily that I mean, I didn't mind it,
Mhm.
but there were long seasons in this where where I just forgot about Bilbo because they were
Right.
concentrating on Thorin,
Right.
which wasn't a problem for me because I liked the character of Thorin.
Right.
I did. Okay, so and again, like I'm not too concerned with what was in the book, what's in the Silmarillion. I mean, I've read the book. I haven't read the Silmarillion. I'm more concerned with if I'm watching this, like, as a movie. What's interesting to me as a movie? Like, how are you telling this story as a movie? Because, and I just feel like as a movie, there was like, we got this and we got this and we got this and let's put them all together. That to me, it was just like
That's why you make
this
3
is
movies.
kind of a
Josh.
mess.
Because they're
And
tying. I mean, they're
it-
trying to do a lot. Like they're actually trying to do more than I thought they were.
Yeah.
Like so like when I went into seeing The Hobbit, I guess I thought that it was gonna be more filler, like padding filler,
Right.
right? And in retrospect, like after watching at least the first part, it doesn't seem as much that there's filler all the time, as in they really are just trying
It's
to
just a lot of content.
kind of like
Yeah.
tie in a lot of shit that to me personally might not have been necessary, like for me to enjoy like the story of the Hobbit. Like I
Right.
feel like but like what they're trying to do with tying it all into the Lord of the Rings, like bringing in some lesser unimportant or like not mentioned characters and just giving them a more prominent like yeah, I mean like,
Well,
like I
yeah.
said, again fan service
Well,
that
and
I didn't
let
really
me
expect from.
asterisk this. I think you used this term. Let me asterisk this as that at really honestly at no point in the film was I really ever bored.
Yeah.
And
All right.
Oh, well, then let me like double asterisk this. That again, I saw it at 1:15 in the morning in an empty IMAX theater and didn't get out to 4:30.
Right.
And at no point did I fall asleep or start feeling like I wish I was somewhere else. And I saw it in 3D, which is like the most eye strain I've ever had in a 3D movie is keeping those glasses on for how long
right.
this movie was. But yeah, no, like at no point was I bored at that movie.
yeah,
Yep.
I mean ultimately that's just a point of like, what do you prefer? And to me, I felt like I was watching this movie. I'm like, they have studio hands all in this thing because I felt like when I was watching Lord of the Rings. I don't know the story behind how the hell Peter Jackson got the job directing that movie because everything previous to Lord of the Rings that he did is nothing.
Yeah, nothing
Lord
like
of
it
the
at all.
Rings.
Like,
Nothing
was
like
it
Lord
Brain
of the
Dead?
Rings.
Was Brain Dead before Lord of the Rings?
Oh yeah, that was all before Lord of the Rings.
All
He
that
did Lord of
stuff.
the Rings, then King Kong,
Yeah.
then the Lovely Bones, and now this.
Am I wrong for liking King Kong?
Yeah, it was a bad. Movie.
Okay.
Okay.
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
However, if like there was like that other half of the movie that was like actually kind of decent to watch and kind of entertaining, and then there's like the boring half of that movie.
You mean when they go back to the? Yeah.
Like, but there were things in that movie that I really do like, especially like me liking a lot of those like older like stuff like that. But no, the movie was shit.
Okay. Anyway, what's your next point, Josh?
But the game, no.
Yeah. So, anyways.
Oh God.
Okay. So.
Easy achievement points, son.
So I want to talk about. Well, let's just go ahead and just do this as a. Let's just sit there. What's his name? Bunny Sled. Jar Jar Binks.
Radagast.
Radagast.
Except not as bad as Jar Jar Binks, because Jar Jar Binks has nothing to do with the plot at all.
Yeah.
He's just there to be annoying.
I think Radagast was silly. He had some.
Radagast is definitely the bird
the
shit.
bunny sled guy.
The bird shit with
The bird shit. That actually annoyed the shit out of me.
Right, he's annoying, but
no, like the way he looked, like I actually was annoyed by the way he looked and acted.
Like wipe the shit off your face.
To the point of I was like, first of all, it stood out to me. I was like, that was not. That was like like a bigger they really was there making it a bigger deal.
Right.
But like it just seemed, again, inconsistent with like what they're what they were doing, and that bothered me. Like it was a little too silly.
A little too silly.
Okay.
It was
nowhere.
A damn bunny sled, dude.
Yeah. That was hilarious.
With bird
to
shit.
me.
on the side of his leg.
I thought that was
pretty
hilarious.
ridiculous.
Terrible.
But
I think he's a bit overkill. I like the character.
not
but
near as bad as Jar Jar Binks.
No.
I thought.
No,
he was
maybe you need to rewatch the Star Wars show.
Jar Jar Binks pretty
here's what I have
bad.
to say about that. I think he's as bad as Jar Jar Binks. The only difference is that Peter Jackson wasn't stupid enough to make him a main character.
I don't know, man.
I thought it was.
We'll see how Radagast plays out throughout the rest of the
Yeah,
trilogy.
I hope we don't see him again.
Yeah,
that would make him worse if we don't see him again, because
because
he'd be more like Jar Jar Binks.
No.
Because
His first scene that he was in, with like, oh, by the way, there's gonna be some spiders. Take it out.
Yeah.
Done.
Actually,
And
I
the
actually
only
like that
reason
whole
he
scene.
was
Yeah,
the only
it was
reason he
weird.
was in there was to show Gandalf the sword, which we could have done another way, and then to distract them from the orcs, which they ended up finding them anyway, and the elves came in and saved them.
Yeah.
So it's just take him out of the movie.
But then you
we
wouldn't have
don't
saw the
need
bunny
didn't ruin it for
sled,
me, though.
Josh.
No, I didn't ruin it.
And
it didn't ruin it for
just-
me though.
Josh, bunny sled school, you're dumb.
Oh, okay.
I
Because
would
it looked-
totally ride the bunny sled.
Because it looks so
It's like
good,
bunny
right?
sled,
It looks so good.
rock monsters.
And it, if that was the only thing, that was not a movie ruiner for me.
Right.
But it was certainly like a
Bird shit.
like a,
It was
like a
very
thumbtack
very
watching it.
weird.
I did have something I want to mention because I don't think we're gonna like. It's not really about CG, so I don't want to get into that yet. But like did you ever get that feeling like whenever they would show areas that because you've seen Lord of the Rings, and like because their aesthetic, art style, color palette, like everything was like very reminiscent of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But like it just didn't feel new when you went to a place.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like did you? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I guess I
I
like
don't-
when we get to
it's weird.
Rivendell, it was like,
Yeah,
this is nice. I remember being
yeah,
here.
but it wasn't like, oh fuck, this
Yeah,
is, like,
it
excuse
wasn't
me.
like Rivendell. It was like, oh, I've been here before.
Yeah, because
It's
I
glad,
remember
I'm glad to be
like-
back here.
when I
I've been
watched Lord of the Rings, I was like,
But
this is
it's
awesome.
like it's like
Yeah.
one of those things. I wish I could have seen like a new part of Rivendell or something like that.
or just like maybe make it look better, but because this is 2012. But like that was the thing where when I brought that up to someone I was talking to, they had mentioned about how I really think that might have been, they really thought it might have been a thing to keep it consistent with the trilogy because just the overall like just what they were doing was very similar to me.
Right.
And then when you got to other parts in the show, it looked a lot better. So I don't know. That's just really strange to me. I was thinking about that every time I saw a new scene. I just never felt like, like again, the rocks and mountains and stuff look very similar. Some other rocks and mountains you saw in the other ones, or like everything, just even the troll stuff or
Like-
the goblins and stuff. Like the whole area just looks similar.
Yeah, and so the next thing I want to talk about is the parts of this movie that I like the best. Really, honestly, were the parts that I thought that I remember definitively, and it's not because I remember them from The Hobbit. I mean, I read The Hobbit when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah, I read it around then too.
You know, so I don't know. I don't remember what all was in it versus what was what was not in it. So I guess that's a question. So the mountain trolls, when they're roasting them over the thing,
Yes.
yeah,
that was
yeah.
it.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
so-
a huge. That's like a huge, like very
Yeah.
iconic
it
scene
ended a
from
little
that.
differently because didn't he like? No, he like. I
No,
think,
in the book, Gandalf.
In the book,
tricks them.
Gandalf
Yeah, it
is
was
his
Gandalf's
intrigue.
more.
Gandalf's like, woo, but I'm glad they did it with Bilbo because it's called The Hobbit. You know, it's about the Hobbit. I'm glad they had Bilbo do it instead of Gandalf because it'd be like more Gandalf. I'm glad Bilbo stepped up and came up with a plan to do something.
And so in the orcs chasing him the whole time, was that in The Hobbit?
No,
That's
added.
So. And
that
was
character
another thing that bothered me.
Azog,
the Kratos guy.
Azog, Azog,
that guy who looks like an action figure.
Yeah. He exists.
Yeah, who is that sweet actor? Who is that?
Jeez. Didn't they have an wait?
I don't know.
No.
That just this.
But see that was
shit.
another thing that was completely superfluous to me.
That
trying
was
to epic it up.
I'm just like that character, that whole thing, the character, the way it looked.
There you go.
Can I just say that was
the
bring
looked,
that back to my first note.
The most goddamn distracting thing to me in the whole movie was how bad that was done. When you look at Gollum and Smeagol stuff and the CG and like the way they were able to pull that off, and you're like, future tech, awesome stuff. This looks amazing. This is great. Why in God's name does that look like? Why did that main character that played kept appearing in the movie look like shit?
Didn't play a role in the movie, but he just kept appearing.
Just kept appearing.
Had nothing to do with the plot.
The goblin, Jabba the Hutt looking thing, like that guy, like the fat.
Yeah.
He even looked way better. Yeah, with the scrotum neck.
Because he had a ball sack.
Looked way better
Jesus.
than this dude. Like,
We
this
all
dude looked
thought
like
it.
a
We
shitty
all
fat.
I was like, that looks like
He looked like someone that would belong in the Star Wars trilogy. That's really what he looked like to me. That's how bad that CGI was to me.
No, it's like, okay, I think what they were trying to do, maybe, look, here's my coming to their defense,
Sell
I guess.
action figures.
Well, it looks like they're like, he's gonna have like weird, interesting goblin skin or something like that. But really, like the way his skin looks, it just looks like he's made of plastic. Honestly.
Yeah.
Well, I think what they were trying
But
to
they're
do,
really talented. I don't understand that. Like,
That's
they
what I'm
do
saying.
all this
that was my
cool
thing,
stuff.
There was no excuse for how bad it looked. And that was, that goes, that's
Just
what
don't
they
even
were
use
trying,
CGI for them. They
what
could
they
do
were
something
trying
better
to
without
do
that.
is epic it up, and like, we're going to add in a bunch of this stuff. And for this fight scene at the end with, like, where we can apparently light a forest on fire with 3 fire pine cones, and just like...
3? There was like 12.
In the book,
they all had
that
one.
dude died.
By the time they all started lighting them, the
was
whole
he?
thing was ablaze.
Was it?
The guy though, the Kratos dude. What happened to him in the book?
He's not in the book
At all?
He exists in Tolkien lore.
Oh, that's right, but he died like way.
He died. He was killed by a dwarf like 100 years before the Hobbit even takes place. But he's just like Lurtz from Lord of the Ring, from the Fellowship of the Ring, the one that they killed at the end. He was completely made up by Peter Jackson. He doesn't exist anywhere.
Yeah.
He was just thrown in.
It should.
But
I just don't get this, man.
I mean, I guess they thought the movie needed a bad guy, so
That's true, because it doesn't
they
have
need
a
a bad
central
guy.
bad guy for that first
there's
movie.
no there's no
There's-
bad guy for the first movie. So
Well, they could have
that's what
maybe
added.
worked on it a little bit better. They really
As far as
did not-
CGI, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But as far as story goes, they needed a bad guy in that movie.
But
They needed someone
did
chasing
they?
them.
I mean,
Yeah.
the quest itself.
Yeah, I kind of
Was-
think I think they need a bad guy because that quest. What did they accomplish? in
We were
that
just
movie?
sitting there. I mean,
But they're
it would have
going.
been more
They're
boring.
going. But I'm saying
Again.
you have different things that you're going through. Like, do we really need some guy just chasing them the whole movie?
Yeah, I mean, plus it's part of Thorne's backstory.
Then
so.
I think everything else would have stood out as being more inconsistent and pointless. I'm just saying, if they hadn't had something to carry it through like that, especially since the guy who was fighting all the time, what's his name? The Shield and all that jazz.
Thorne?
Yeah, like it was kind of like his little movie though. In like a lot of ways,
That's
like,
his backstory,
I was about
yeah.
to say like that movie was like
Right.
kind of focused around that, so
Right.
it kind of made sense.
Well, so let's talk about some of the things that were like definitively from The Hobbit. Like, okay, so you have like the Smeagol scene. Okay, I thought the scene with Gollum was really good.
I could
It's
watch.
like
I could
almost-
watch
in
that.
fact,
I
that
could
was
watch
my
that for
favorite
2
scene of
hours.
the whole
Yeah, I
movie.
could watch that for 2 hours and 45 minutes.
That
honestly.
scene was so. I like.
I think
that
that's
scene-
everybody's favorite scene.
I think that scene was. I enjoyed that scene so much.
Neil, you did great.
I know. I heard all about that. I
That made me forget about everything previous to that I didn't enjoy about
Right.
the movie.
I remember being a lot more like it being like more scary when I read it as a child, but that could have just been because I was a kid. But I just remember that scene just being like they seemed almost kind of more playful, but I just remembered.
But
it
there
being,
were some really
no,
creepy
there
moments
were.
in that.
Like I was like,
Andy's-
he's gonna eat his face off.
I
Like
think
whenever
that-
Gollum looks around the corner from like whenever he's chasing him finally, and like and his eye, and I'm glad they actually had his eyes glowing because that was a big thing in the book, like his
Yeah.
eyes glow in the
Yeah.
dark
Yeah.
because he's been living on the mountain for 500 years. Of course, his body's going to adjust to that. Like whenever he looked around the corner, his eyes were glowing. I was like, oh shit, that scared the shit out of me.
And I
That was
think
creepy.
I think that Andy Serkis,
Yeah.
the guy that just
Jeez,
ooh,
if
I
they ever
mean,
make an
he best
Oscar
in-
for being an animated
Yeah.
character, then
but that's what's criminal though is that he gets out there and he acts that out.
right.
Right.
And that's I think why it looks different is how involved he is with the motion and coming out and acting that out. He doesn't just do the voice later. And like
Right.
he did it. I didn't see Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but he did the same thing.
yeah.
Was he the monkey?
Yeah.
And I just think that he really
Never saw him.
he just steal. I thought he stole the movie.
Oh, yeah.
I really thought that he
I
stole.
remember
the movie.
reading about that. I just looked up the double check, but didn't Andy Serkis help direct some of that?
He did.
Stuff?
He was
I looked
co-director.
that up later. Yeah, that makes sense because he really understood some of that
Well,
shit.
and what they did so well was you're okay, it's kind of funny, and then he'd switch it to maybe it's not funny. It's
And then you're like, he is a bipolar character, so that's perfect.
Right.
and I thought that was far and away the best scene of the movie.
That chapter, Riddles in the Dark chapter, is probably one of my top 5 favorite chapters from any book I've ever read ever, and I think that moment in the movie was just done so well, man. I was just so happy for that.
I agree.
That's just one of my favorite things to read ever as a child.
And that probably isn't a hard part. I mean, it isn't an easy part to get right. So it is probably quite an accomplishment.
And I think they did a good job with even though we had the advantage again, and this is the thing because Lord of the Rings came first, of knowing Gollum's backstory. Yeah. Where I guess really in The Hobbit you didn't know he wasn't a primary character.
I wonder
you kind of had that in Lord of the Rings they really do a good job of making you kind of feel sympathy for him.
Yeah.
And in this whenever he's looking around, I really always kind of do feel bad for him. Especially when he jumps over him and you know that he's he just the way that he plays it is so good.
Right.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And that to me was the strongest point of the movie. And there are different things like that. And again, I like the whole. I always like dwarves. I just like dwarves.
Because dwarves are awesome.
God, they're
and
funny.
Again,
they were awesome.
They were funny in the book. They were funny in this, and I think he just did a great job of taking that relationship of how different Bilbo was from the dwarves, and playing that out really, really well in the movie.
I like that scene that whenever they finally started camping, it was after the Stone Giants. They were camping. Bilbo was trying to leave, and Boffer. That little exchange that they had, I really, truly enjoyed that scene too.
Yeah.
We only got to talk to 3 or 4 of the dwarves, but whenever we got to talk to them, I was like, man, I really care for these guys. They're funny, but then they can get really serious, man.
Yeah, they did both the funny and serious thing really well.
Yeah. And it's because of the actors were so good.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the things I don't like, and this is a Tolkien thing, this isn't a Peter Jackson thing, and it's just a personal preference.
Pacing.
Let's sit here and describe the land for a second.
And they did it 3 times in this movie, okay? Is how, Gandalf comes and just saves the day. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's like a total...
He's a fucking wizard, Josh.
But he's not...
Josh.
I think that's an exact quote from one of the dwarves.
It's a wizard.
Wizard.
That is what wizards do. Maybe you need to read more fantasy.
I know what... No, but, there's different kinds of wizards, and I just feel like...
Yeah, there's the shitty animal wizards with bird shit on their head.
But
and
the reason
Gandalf.
I don't like a character that's... Because I felt like in Lord of the Rings, even after... Plot spoiler, I guess. If
you haven't seen
when he died and when he came back, he still was he kicked ass, but I felt like he was more powerful in this, or I felt like his powers were inconsistent. I can do something cool now, but I can't do something cool 5 minutes later whenever we're getting chased down. And it was inconsistent. And then it's okay, and
that's Tolkien, yeah. That.
And the scene where they're okay, we're with the goblin things. I get I didn't have a problem. I had a problem with the scene because of how it looked. I didn't have a problem with the scene in the sense that it existed because I understand we have to do something with the dwarves.
Right.
And I'm like, what?
What do you mean how it looked? The goblin scene?
With the Goblin King and all that?
Yes, what do you mean how it looked?
It looked horrible.
Like what?
The CGI was terrible.
Really?
It looked like
that was one of the spots where the CGI didn't bother me.
Yeah. I
was more bothered by the shitty fire at the
mountain.
beginning from the
dragon. I thought it was atrocious, and I thought whenever they're running around, it looked like a Looney Tune cartoon. I was like, what the hell is this?
I never thought that one. Honestly, I never
let's
thought
pick
that
up a beam and blah, 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 blah. Oh no, dude. I
honestly didn't think that once. It did just feel like that part did just feel like a video game. I'm not gonna lie there. I wouldn't say that it was my favorite scene, but it did feel
there are some video game
if I was watching a
there.
scripted video game run, if I was running through Fable or some shit and beams would fall strategically in the spot where I have to run.
I felt like they should have changed the soundtrack to
just running around in circles. Or they're running in a door and
Scooby-Doo. I was like, this is so bad. But
it did go on for a while.
But the reason me bringing that scene up is because it's they got captured by the goblins, and as bad as I thought it looked, I was like, okay, they're in it. How are they going to get out of this?
Wizard.
Because I was genuinely invested in, how are they going to get out?
Right.
And then Gandalf shows up and saves them, and I'm like, well, that's a cop-out. And I just felt like it was a cop out. And whether Tolkien wrote it or Jackson wrote it or whoever wrote it,
Tolkien wrote it.
I just felt like oh, that's not even.
I guess what he was going for in the first half of the book, Gandalf. I guess he does purposely, Tolkien had Gandalf purposely save their asses multiple times. So the dwarves kind of build up this thing like Gandalf's around, we're okay, or even though he's off, like he's meant to be somewhere, but he'll show up.
Right.
Later in the story, it's not really the case. They're like, he'll show up. Oh shit, where's he at? And they're screwed. I guess it's kind of a build up to that, more of like, I don't know.
Well, and and that was the thing is like, and again, like I felt like his showing up and not showing up and what he could do and what he couldn't do was inconsistent. And what I like about his character in Lord of the Rings is like, okay, so we have the Balrog scene where it's like Gandalf's gonna save us and then he dies.
Right.
And it's just like, whoa. And but even when he came back, like whenever they're having that big fight at the end of the Two Towers, like
and you're like, oh shit.
He's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And he's shown the light, but he didn't but it wasn't like him being there was enough to save them. It was like he still had to bring it on.
His light was just a distraction. Right. Like he's not shooting like lightning bolts out of his hand. Like he's just there to kind of.
It's like in the Goblin Cave, he shows up and all the goblins are like, ah, and then they start running, and because the goblins he's not powerful anymore and they can chase him. Like what?
He's got to restore his mana.
Yeah, his mana right now.
And I just
that's like why didn't you fly with the eagles?
Yeah.
Instead of just dropping yourself.
It'd have been more of a cop out if Gandalf was like, lightning, they're all dead. All right, let's just walk out of here. It'd been boring.
I felt like, but I also felt like them fighting their way out of their own accord would have been much more interesting than Gandalf showing up, period. And really show them kicking ass, like as dwarves. Like they're warriors, let's give them a chance to kick some ass.
We're absolutely going to see that later in the next two movies.
I hope so, because you don't see it in the book.
Well, you do later in the book.
Well, no, remember he falls... Oh, should we talk about the end of the book? Or should we not talk about the end?
Let it
go.
Wait,
what, the Lord of the Rings? What are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about the Hobbit.
Hobbit.
At the end of the Hobbit, because you don't see it in the
Hobbit.
Hobbit.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't talk about
and I hope that we see it.
I think
that's one thing I hope he does.
I think they'll change that. They'll change that.
Any battle scene, I'm sure you can see, or anything like that, it's gonna be like.
I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, wizards are never late, nor are they early. They arrive precisely when they mean to.
Right.
So
that's true.
Cool. That's fine.
Wizards.
Anything else you need to talk about?
Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about before we move on to the look of the movie? Because that was probably the biggest thing of the entire the entire thing.
I don't.
Yeah. What?
That's good.
All right. So the thing that I think the most people, even people that really, really, really liked the movie, I thought the CGI in this was an abomination, and I'm being kind when I say that, especially when Lord of the Rings came out. And Lord of the Rings, the CGI looked better in Lord of the Rings than it did in this. Not to mention, in Lord of the Rings, when you had the orcs, they mixed it with prosthetics and CGI. In this, it was a CGI fat fest.
It was like two people in prosthetics the whole time, I think,
awful.
as far as orcs go.
It pulled me out of the whole, and that was my biggest thing, is how much it pulled me out. It was, if you were to ask me, if I were to stand in front of a classroom and say, here's a perfect example of overusing CGI, this movie would be, I would refer to this movie.
Yeah.
Because in Transformers, I feel like, okay, they use too much. I don't like I only saw the first one. Didn't like the movie at all. Yeah, okay. And I didn't like the movie at all, but I feel like at least the robots looked decent in the movie. Whereas I feel like in this, it was just like, nothing even looked good.
Mm-hmm.
Even the smoke coming out of the pipe looked bad.
That scene, yeah. I wasn't a big fan of the CG outside of the Golem Smeagol thing. Like that.
Okay.
That was like this. Like again, that was like this.
I like the mountain troll scene when they were around the campfire. I thought they looked good.
The mountain trolls. I would say that they weren't Dude, honestly, if Kratos dude and some of the other stuff wasn't so bad, like the mountain trolls comparatively really weren't that bad. Yeah. And I like the rocks, but yeah, like I just really didn't like some of the CG.
Yeah, it was very inconsistent.
I would say that it did take me out of it and was off-putting when it happened.
It was,
but along with other things in the movie, it's made me want to go rewatch the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So I'm actually going to do that soon and see how much of that is just me
Compare.
remembering it better. Because we've seen such good CG
Right.
since The Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Yeah.
But The Lord of the Rings just did a lot right aesthetically. Like, for me, like, really, really worked. So I'm interested in how much of that freaking bloom glow that they do throughout the Lord of the Rings movies
Right.
and things like that. How much it's just not me used to it now. You know?
Right. Well, and to me though, like, and yeah, obviously there are certain things that you have to do with CGI. Like you have to.
Right.
But I felt
Like mountain trolls sitting around a fire.
Right. But I feel like to me it just looked so. Again, I would keep referring to the studios, and I felt like this movie was around for so long.
Yeah.
That they were like, all right, well, CGI it, let's go.
And their studios are just so talented. Like, a
Exactly.
lot of the people are just
Yeah.
so good. But then the prosthetic thing that his wife or whatever does, like,
Right.
that
Yeah.
group is, like, so good at doing all the stuff they do, and it's, like, seems really underused in this movie.
I think they obviously changed the budget to pay more for better cameras than they did for prosthetics.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they wanted to go that route. I guess
Or
because
do
it was
the-
faster,
or like
a lot
these
less
3
time
movies,
consuming.
maybe, and a lot of content.
Well, I mean, it's a digital movie, and when you have stuff like that, you run the risk of like, all right, let's kick it out. Digital moves faster.
Yeah.
Let's get it done.
Right.
And I just felt like, it just looked. To me, it looked bad. Like it was just really. It was. I thought it was shamefully bad. How like. And
When
again,
it
I go
was
back-
bad, it was really bad. But then I actually saw it twice. I saw a lot of the first viewing. I saw it as a fanboy, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Second time through, I saw the bad CGI, and it was really bad, like the wargs and the stupid rabbit sled. But then I saw good CGI, and I was like, damn, that is really good. I'm like, how can you have something so good? Like my second viewing, I really thought the mountain trolls, because I had a perfect seat. I was right in the middle of the theater. The mountain trolls look really good to me. The ones around the fire, like with the boogers, and one of them's eyes were kind of going cockeyed, and the details in the like the moles and the hairs.
The
on his
actual
face.
goblin guy and some of them looked actually.
And the
really
Goblin
cool,
King, yeah, his scrotum on his chin, and then of course Gollum. I'm like, how can you have something that looks so good?
I felt like Gollum looked exponentially better than everything.
I like how
else.
they made him look younger too than the Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings.
I just thought I was like he was noticeably better than everything.
Absolutely.
else.
Absolutely.
We'll get into this a little bit later, but like I went with a friend BJ who had actually led us into movies and stuff before, and my roommate Jessica, and if we hadn't seen the Star Trek trailer beforehand and about how good some of their like aesthetically, like some of the things they were doing, and we also saw it in 3D at the IMAX, I wouldn't have felt as upset, I think, about what I saw in The Hobbit, because they were doing things in that trailer that just blew away some of the CG and some of the stuff they were showing in there, especially things like fire and ember and stuff like that. The way it looked, the fire in The Hobbit just looked really bad, like bad video.
I mean,
like the fire on his finger or whatever.
all of it, like or like the
At the
flames.
end.
From
What else?
the flames from the dragon when they were burning through stuff. It looks really,
really?
weird.
Or
Like
the dragon, the entire last sequence that was all CGI.
The coins look.
yeah,
The
So
dragon's
bad to me.
eye
That
looked
too.
bad.
No,
wasn't
I didn't think.
bad.
Once I zoomed in on the eye,
It wasn't.
I could see
it wasn't
detail. I didn't think
lost
the eye was
bad,
too
but it was
bad.
bad.
Right. But I mean,
Coins are
I did.
bad.
Yeah, the fire was bad. I mean, I didn't like.
I mean,
the
this
last-
is really nitpicking.
Yeah, dude,
just
like
for the
with the
record.
blur.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm
this
just
is
saying.
this is about as nitpicky as.
But I would
it's
say
gonna
that
don't-
some of it took
I
me
don't
out of
say
it.
so. I think a movie that
Is
really
something
kind of
like The
puts its
Hobbit?
backbone. It's The Hobbit, and really like a huge majority of, because this is an effects movie,
Yeah.
and when a bunch of the effects don't look good, I don't think that's being nitpicky. I think that's saying you should have done a better job. You had the money.
Should have
you
more
had the
prosthetics.
talent,
Yeah, I just
you should
think
have done a better job.
most Hollywood can get away with such a crappy job now, and they just kind of went that route. Like honestly, like you can get away with such little.
Like, was it cheaper for them to do CGI than it was to do prosthetics?
It's cheaper to do. It depends
in
on
large,
how it
it
is.
depends
In
on
large
the size
amounts
like
of
that.
the
for what they're
It's
doing.
faster, especially when stuff is like really far
and
away.
that's also
and
true. It's faster too, especially when you probably have a dedicated team of working on that for so long, and they've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, and and I agree. And like even at the end, like so with the fire. Number one, I thought the last scene was like a very fake epic scene. I was just like,
You
what's
mean
going
like what was the very
on? Like where he's squaring off against like
and gets his ass whooped. Yeah.
yeah. But I felt like
That's
I
kind
didn't.
of weird.
I thought the cut, and this was maybe like the editing is the Gandalf lights the fire pine cone. Cool. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea.
Fire pine cone.
Like let's go. Let's
Yeah,
go.
that's actually in the
And
book
then-
too.
and then, like,
I was
he
waiting
throws-
for that to happen. I was
and then
like,
I was
please have the
watching,
fire
and I was
pine
watching.
cone.
Like, so he throws pine cone. He throws like 2. He throws 3.
And then he
and
gets
then all of a
40
sudden,
pine
everybody
cones.
starts lighting him up.
Well, he drops them down to everybody,
Right,
and
right,
they
right.
and
Yeah,
they
and
light
they-
one, and they spread,
and
and
they-
they spread, and then they're all wow, yeah.
But it's like before everybody started throwing them, the entire forest was on fire, and I was just like,
I didn't notice that.
That's a gross. I'm like, I don't know why, but I'm just like,
Well,
come on, guys.
well,
Come on,
fire
guys.
spreads, Josh. So like if one area gets fire, it was
Oh,
dry.
I've done.
We don't know the
I've
exact
done videos
climate.
on burning Christmas trees. I know.
We don't
I
know
how
the
fire
exact
spreads.
climate it was in that specific
If you were a
spot
real
of
fan,
Middle
you would
Earth.
have known that.
But yeah, I mean that to me, and another thing that the look, and this is me being nitpicky.
Yeah, not Josh Carley.
One of the things I like the most about Lord of the Rings is the locations that they shot it in. New Zealand is beautiful.
Yeah.
It is aesthetically beautiful. The
Like
mountains,
Xena and Hercules, beautiful.
right? Like the mountains, the sets, like the places that they can find and build the
The
ruins
reason they stayed there
inns,
for so long.
and then the open fields. I think it's beautiful, and I think there's a lot of you could do a lot of beautiful saturations and yellows and stuff like that, and the different colors and a bright color palette. And they went with blue and orange contrast for this movie, and that
Is that really your complaint?
that is a huge complaint of mine.
When were you bothered by the blue and orange contrast? Like
the
whole
entire
movie?
movie, and it might be
don't-
because
You didn't get your, you might need
I
to
didn't
get
see
your eyes
that at
checked.
all.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I remember
Well,
one
no, but it's
scene.
fine. But like for me, so for
But
someone,
if your eyes are bad, like maybe.
go back and look for it, and it may be because
I did though.
now,
I did my second time. When I didn't see it my second time. Actually, I saw more. The Galadriel Gandalf scene. I saw pinks and purples and whites and
Yeah,
yellows. I was like, look at all
there
those
was
colors.
occasional scenes, especially they had some beautiful like aerial crane shots
Mm-hmm.
of open fields, and I'm like, what? It looked good. Rivendell looked, from a color standpoint, I thought Rivendell looked good, but it just to
What
me,
is
and
the
it's
orange? Like I see a lot of
Was it-
like
it's probably
dark,
fire, like campfire.
Is it? I mean, I see a
guess.
lot of.
it's in the fires,
see a
it's
lot
in
of
fire.
caves, it's at night, it's all over the place in the movie.
guess.
And the reason that it bothers me is because number one, like that's just something I look for in movies, period.
Mm-hmm.
And that I can't tell you how many movies use that, and it's not even done like okay.
I think it's
so,
accidentally done a lot, but yeah. I
like
really
like
agree with
Kubrick does it in Eyes Wide Shut, and it's like you'll see a whole room is orange, and then like a back room will be blue.
Right.
And even in like I said, I just watched Brokeback Mountain, and they
Yeah.
do it to some extent, but it's very subtle, it's very clean. But then like now they've gotten into where everything is like harsh blue, harsh orange.
Hugo
and
was
it's
really
just-
bad at that.
Yeah,
that.
Hugo
Hugo
was
bad.
blue and
That
orange.
I remember that.
Like,
And
even
it's-
the
and it's-
DVD box cover is blue and orange.
And I just
Like,
felt
Every
like, I
DVD
just
box
felt
cover is
like,
blue and
in
orange.
the same way I felt about the CGI, I felt like I'm sorry, but I just felt like a lot of the colors,
It
especially
could
night
really
stuff,
be though the way
was
a lot.
really boring to
It-
me,
it
and I
could
thought it was
be-
a missed opportunity.
It could really be a way of a lot, like because of the way CGI was used a lot. Because one of my biggest things I liked about watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy in general was just looking at New Zealand. Because there
Right.
was a lot of shots in those things of like, this is New Zealand.
Yeah.
Look how
Right.
pretty it is. Bam.
Right.
And I felt like The Hobbit was less so. It was more
Yeah,
like
they didn't have
look
as
at
much.
look at this sweet CGI landscape, or New Zealand, but like coded in a lot of CGI that wasn't really done that well. And to me, that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and I just
And
I
it wasn't
felt
like good CGI like I felt like Avatar was from like a
Right.
aesthetically, like when you're looking at like a world, I feel like that looked real in a way that Lord of the Rings felt like CGI that was done. When did Lord of the Rings come out?
2001.
Yeah, I felt like The Hobbit, some of their CGI, like for even landscapes, looked like something in 2001. But
Right.
as I was saying earlier, I think that really might be to where it doesn't stand out in the same way that when you watch the old Star Wars movies, like
Yeah,
like
like
you
if
watch
it's,
the new ones, it's like, why do the old ones look like the future and the new ones don't?
Yeah.
And I feel like that might
It's
really
'cause
be why.
I think if you want to sit down and you have all 6 movies on DVD and you want to watch them in order from The Hobbit to Lord of the Rings, that The Hobbit, since it came out after Lord of the Rings but takes place way
Still
before Lord of
fits.
the Rings, it's not way too distracting or,
Yeah.
or too different CGI wise from Lord of the Rings.
and I don't really blame them for doing it. Like I get it. Like in me, I like to look at pretty things. So
I
wish
think
that it
for
looked better.
fans, that was probably a fan.
Yeah.
What was that phrase you're using? Fan something.
Fan service.
That one.
Yeah. But I guess like that's fine. But just for me personally,
Is it a
as
cop
a
out?
viewer,
Yeah,
it's
I
distracting
agree.
as hell.
Yeah.
And it looks horrible, and and I just feel like you have one of the richest fantasy novels in the world, and you're about to put it on a visual. You are producing it in a visual medium,
Mm-hmm.
and you gave us crap CGI and like about at least half the movie just really boring 2-color cinematography. Like I was like, you could have done something that was just better than this. And really, honestly, like that took me out. I mean, that honestly took me out more than just what I thought were superfluous scenes. Was how bad I thought a lot of the stuff looked. Because to me, I think now, like that's such a, like you said,
That's definitely. I mean, that is definitely your like. How I would say it, like more of your like wanting to produce side, like the part of you that's more creative side. That's definitely leaking into that.
That's
there.
your cinematographer.
Yeah. Which is a valid problem
for a regular human being.
Yeah, I don't think most people. I don't think it's
right.
It's not
a problem. The CGI, yes. Color palette, not really. It's not really a huge issue for I guess the fan people, but for someone like you that's into editing and the cinematography stuff, I could see
like they could have done better. Yeah, like yeah.
Which to me though,
I mean, I think they would admit that they could have done better.
Well, and to me the CGI, I mean, and again, even go back, we can go. I talk about CGI along when I go through, but like, whenever you have people who don't have who have really no knowledge of movies and they just kind of come to be entertained, and even they're like, the CGI was really bad. Like, you didn't do a good job.
Right.
No, you did something wrong.
Yeah. I mean,
that's why I agree.
A regular person will point out CGI.
Yeah.
Color palette, no. CGI, yes. And when it was bad, it was bad. And when it was good, it was fucking amazing.
Yeah. And I think that also was a weird issue where it did stand out because they did have scenes that were like super, super good.
Yeah.
And then other ones where you were like
wait,
how did you just do that?
And the ones that were really good were all scenes from the book, like iconic scenes, like getting roasted over the fire. I personally thought the mountain trolls looked awesome in that.
Well, no,
not in the first viewing, the second viewing, I was like,
the mountain trolls didn't bother me as much as the goblins, and maybe it's because the goblins just
it was also the area
the scrotum chin just looked so silly.
It did.
That I was like,
funny.
What are you?
The character design is really weird.
But that looked like something to me that would be in a children's, like almost like a fairy tale-ish.
Right.
Like
I can see a kid like laughing at it and slapping it around.
Right. That's part of it. Feel like to me.
But to me though,
like with the zipline goblin,
that goes back to
with the zipline.
But again, that goes back to the thing I said earlier, where like it's all just I felt like the film, because it did things like that, I just felt it was a really safe film. Mm-hmm. So at no point was I ever like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen?
Yeah. Well,
because in Lord of the Rings, I mean, it was like. We're playing for kids.
It's because those books are so long, and you kind of get lost in what exactly happens. I guess if you've read the book, did you read Lord of the Rings or no?
No, I never read Lord of the Rings.
And that's probably why. I really think
like an encyclopedia with elves and dwarves.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what it feels like when you read it.
But to me, that's so much.
No, it's awesome. But like seriously, like when you was reading it for AR when I was younger, I was just like, what? But I mean, I've read it since then. I mean, I like the book.
But whenever Gandalf sliced his belly. Like that cut across his stomach, that looked like actual like cutting through fat to me.
What about the one-liner he had after that?
That was a little Del Toro-ish to me. That was weird.
I hated
that was a little cheesy.
That was a little cheesy. Again, though, it felt like a kid's or like a Disney. Like a weird,
little lighthearted thing thrown in there. It was kind of weird.
It's interesting that we're talking about this because George R.R. Martin, the guy that writes the Song of Ice and Fire, like he in all the interviews, people always compare him. They're like, so people compare you to Tolkien. What do you think about that? And his whole thing is always like, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would say thank you.
But he's like, but at the same time, like he's like, I do also do a lot of things that are different.
Right.
And he's like, we're Tolkien. He's like, because his stuff is very, very, very dark. It's a lot darker than anything from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It's darker from The Hobbit. And one of his things is like, he's like, in fantasy, he's like, Tolkien kind of created some of these cliches, or like these overpowered wizards and things like that. And he's like, and people have just abused them in fantasy as a genre since the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit came out.
Right.
He's like, so I don't like that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. He's like, so that's why I don't write that kind of stuff. He's like, I'm not interested in that kind of thing. He's like, that was fine when Tolkien did it. He's like, but that's not what I want to do. That's not the kind of style that I personally like. So I don't do it in my work. And that just comes down to a preference thing.
Right.
And just as a personal preference, like of mine. And honestly, him showing up and the Lord of the Rings and the way that he didn't ever bother me. And I watched Lord of the Rings. I went back and rewatched them like a year ago.
Right.
And it didn't bother me.
Yeah.
And for some reason, in this movie, it bothered me to no end. Especially the Goblin King.
I was reading Josh's notes just now, and just since we were talking about CG, there is one thing I want to talk a little bit more on. That smoke pipe scene, by the way, was really retarded. Like it really looked dumb. The pipe.
Which one? The one in the beginning when Bilbo's smoking when he blows the ring.
But you wrote silly.
There were multiple
more CGI and pipe smoke and stuff like that with the pipe smoke.
When Gandalf
when they had, I didn't like the part when it was the bird shit guy in Gandalf,
Yeah.
With the mushrooms.
I don't like how they made him like a freaking like pothead. Like I was like,
was
come on,
really
because like there was
lame.
always jokes whenever Lord of the Rings came out, like
Right.
smoking Toby.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that's like we, but they're
Right.
like
Which
straight
is,
up came
like,
out and
funny
said it
like a
like
weird
it's
way.
like we because he crossed
Yeah.
his eyes, and so I was like, oh god,
Yeah.
another.
wasn't a fan of
I didn't care for that.
And I
At
get it
all.
when you're trying to make shapes, but whenever you're just smoking,
When you're just smoking,
you don't
yeah.
need to.
Doesn't-
And then
Unless
occasionally
someone
they
doesn't
didn't do it.
want to smoke, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that might have been like, well, this actor's not.
I mean, you are Sir Ian McKellen. If you don't want to smoke, you don't have to smoke.
I also want to say real quick about like I thought the dwarves' makeup was the way that they embellished their facial features was leaning a lot more towards that kind of ha 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 funny kind of thing because
Mhm.
it was so like because you could see where the prosthetics on the nose and the head start and ended, and I just felt like when you have again like I just didn't feel like it. I just felt like it threw that. We were talking about that earlier. Again, I keep going back to that mix of like what's serious. Maybe not serious. And I just thought the way the dwarves looked was a little bit too comical.
I felt like that
for
was the
some
same way dwarves looked in Lord of the Rings. and
I
stuff.
thought
Yeah.
Gimli. I thought Gimli looked a lot better than what he looked like.
No, I mean I'm talking about like.
I think
just
Gimli had
the
more
image.
beard to
Yeah, I
cover up
think
his
the
face
beard is
anyway.
what fits
So
that
and that's
stuff.
but like
But,
if you got to do that, then do that. You know,
Yeah.
you don't. You're like, okay, well, here's what we're capable of doing.
Yeah.
How can we fix up the rest of it?
Yeah.
And they're like CGI. It's like, well, like the rocks. Okay, well, the rocks looked a lot better to me, but again, like they were rocks, and it was
Mhm.
dark, and so it's going to look better because
Correct.
there's not as much detail being focused on them because of the lighting and where they're at.
Right.
So if you can't do a good job with dwarf makeup, then don't put it on a movie poster.
Yeah.
Don't put it in the middle of the screen. Put some hair. Put some facial hair.
But
on.
I thought there was some really good dwarf makeup.
dwarves-
I
I
thought some of them looked
Thor
really
and
good.
Oakenshield looked really
I thought a
good.
lot of them looked really good. I think there's
Yeah,
like
I
there's
wasn't
2 or 3
bothered.
that look really bad. Like Bomber didn't look very good. Of course, they didn't have him on the screen that much. The one like with the crazy hair, it looked like a triangle on his head. I guess that kind of stood out because you know that can't be a real hairdo, so you know that's a
I
hairpiece.
thought the older, wiser one that was kind of
Balin?
going through
Yeah.
Thorn's story. I thought he.
Yeah, he
looked
was
fine.
Oh, he looked great too.
Like
I think
I-
I think the main one, the main ones that had main parts, they didn't look bad at all. It
like I
didn't
said,
distract me at
And
all.
there's the one that didn't have any makeup on him at all. It looked like.
When
Yeah.
I wrote my notes down and I watched the movie, like I really just remember leaving thinking like, man, dwarves have done really well. That was awesome. Like in general, like I
Right.
liked the characters and I was
I
like,
like their characters.
they were
and
done
the way
really
they
well.
played them and the guys that acted them.
yeah, I was like, there's a lot of good actors in this movie, and I mean
Yeah,
that was
they
one of the
did.
things I really loved.
The acting was amazing
Yeah,
in this movie.
I agree.
Okay. All right. So when we come back, John Michael has left, by the way. So when
Failure.
So when we come
That's why
back,
he's so
we're going
quiet.
to tell you what we're going to give you our, 1-2 minute
Yep.
summaries.
And we're
of
gonna
what we
make
thought.
up an opinion for John Michael.
Yeah, and then we're going to do a quick what we thought about Lord of the Star Trek and
Lord of
Superman
the Star
trailers.
Trek, Star Wars plot.
All right, everybody, welcome back from the break. So we're going to kind of give you our summaries of whether or not we think you should go see it, our thoughts, condense them for you. And then we're going to talk real quick about the new Star Trek trailer and the new Superman trailer. So, Andrew, we'll start with you. Give us like
Okay.
a good minute or two of what you think.
I'll go first. Overall, despite all the bad CGI, the color palette, I guess, as a fanboy, I thoroughly enjoyed it just because of those moments, specifically the riddles in the dark scene. Like I could have watched that forever. Those moments whenever Bilbo finally shows back up to the crew, they think he left, and Thorin's like, "Why did you come back?" And he says, because I have a home. That's exactly why I came back, and you don't have one. I'm going to help you get one back. That moment, and then the moment Galadriel and Gandalf are speaking, Galadriel's like, why the halfling? And he's like, perhaps it's because I'm afraid, and he gives me courage. And I'm like, oh my god. Like, moments like that made that movie for me. And from beginning to end, I was like all smiles, especially the first time we saw it, or first time I saw it. Even the second time, I was just so happy to be back in Middle Earth. I'm like, oh, just thank you for bringing me back here. I don't know. I enjoy it. If I were to break it down and give it a score, 3.75 out of 5. That's me.
A 3.7. What would you give the Lord of the Rings movies?
5 out of 5. What are you talking about?
What would you give The Dark Knight Rises?
Oh, this is fun. Let's play this game.
This is gonna come up
Three-
no matter what, guys.
3.5 out of 5. I'm not going to go
So
back.
this is
on
better
it.
than Do you think this is better than Dark Knight Rises? I actually wanted to know that. I mean, I know comparing movies is like completely superfluous. I just wanted to know if you felt that this movie was better than Dark Knight Rises.
This was a 3.75.
I just want to know.
The Lord of the Rings were only at 1.25 points higher than this movie to you.
Yeah. Can you just tell me if it was better than Dark Knight Rises? Did you have more?
I'm not answering that question.
Okay, how about this? This is really how I feel. Like, did you have more fun watching this than The Dark Knight Rises, or did you not?
I had more fun with this movie.
Well, this was a funner movie. It was made to be a funner. Well, kind of tried to make.
I'm a bigger fanboy of.
Look at that.
I'm a bigger fanboy of Tolkien than I am of Batman. So of course I enjoyed it slightly more.
Okay.
Oh God, you're such an ass. I was trying to be so sweet and awesome, and you're just 3.75 out of 5. Go see it. It was awesome. Go see it twice. Buy it on Blu-ray. That's what I'm doing.
Would you see it again if you could see it in 45 frames per second?
I actually was thinking about in 48 frames. I don't know, but I was actually thinking the other day. I was driving in the car. I was like, you know what? I really want to go see The Hobbit again.
If you can find it in 48 frames, I'll see it with you.
I think it's at Perkins Road.
Gotta have free tickets
there too. They had that HFR thing over there, I think.
Yeah, they have that new theater they could have did something there too.
Yeah, I think that's the only place. I think they have 48.
That I saw Cloud Atlas in. Anyway.
All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to?
No, that's it. I love The Hobbit.
All right, Neil.
Yeah, I would say that overall I really did enjoy the movie. I left the movie feeling like, hey, I want to go watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy now and play some of those semi-awesome, sort of shitty but amusing EA games on the PS2 right now from the Lord of the Rings stuff. Like
War in the North is fun.
That is fun. You know, there's that MOBA too that just came out.
I want that so bad.
If you get it, I'll get it. But there's a lot of games that a lot of reasons I like the movie, and but overall I felt like it was trying to be epic, but it felt forced into being epic, and that kind of bothered me. There was a little too much winking and nudging, which is most of the fan service,
right?
And some of that I wasn't really a big fan of, and it still seemed like they were stretching the story of The Hobbit that I felt like works because it's smaller and compressed and more of a lighthearted adventure about Bilbo talking about everything. And this doesn't have that same vibe to me about just like Bilbo's whole like observing and just being an observer and like a little adventure, and he's kind of there. It doesn't seem like that. But that's like what this movie is. But overall, I really liked it. I'm not gonna give it some point score, but I enjoyed it. To me, also more than I felt like I enjoyed The Dark Knight Rises, and.
I was fixing to say, well, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, hold on now, son.
Yeah,
hold on.
Let's not joke.
Pump your brakes, kid.
But I also feel like I actually enjoyed it the more than I did. At least it feels like that way. Some of the Lord of the Rings movies, I get them all mixed up sometimes in my head, but I felt like there was a lot more action in this movie than maybe there were in some of the other ones. I don't know if that's just me remembering it weirdly, but I felt like there was a lot of action in this movie, for better or worse.
It's a movie, so.
I'm saying than the other Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh yeah.
I felt like there was more just action in this one thing, all compressed. Like even if it
compared
was
compared to the Fellowship of the Ring, yeah.
Yeah, that was a little And I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed it, despite all the things that we, shitted on.
Those songs, man.
The songs.
I'm buying
awesome.
that soundtrack.
I
want to buy that soundtrack.
I'm totally purchasing the soundtrack, not downloading it illegally.
Yeah, right.
Give me a copy.
Yeah.
But I won't download illegally, but I will borrow your copy.
Yeah. Sweet. How about you, Josh? Or John Michael?
Oh.
All right, I'm answering for John Michael. I think he felt the same way I did.
Yeah.
I think he'd probably scored around the same I would.
Yeah, probably.
Overall, okay, so if you're asking me whether or not you should go see it, which some people have, my answer to that question is yes, go see it, because I think that you should go see it. Because I just think you need to. This is one of those movies you just need to see to have an opinion on.
And I think you should see it in theaters. I feel like it's one of those. To me,
very much a theater.
Movies like that, I feel like if you're gonna ever see it, at least see that type of movie in theater. Like that's the type of movie that you should go see.
Yeah. Really, like I guess for me, like I was really I mean, we've kind of talked about it. I felt like I was really disappointed with a lot of it. I really felt like this was a Lord of the Rings movie made for the Transformers crowd, to put it in a total nutshell. And I felt like it was a much more mature piece, and I felt like they did a lot of just kind of dumbing down with it. Again, I didn't like the CGI, and really because we didn't talk a lot about the fact that this is one of three.
Yeah.
That's because I think we talked about that even.
It feels like I said. It feels more like a part of a whole. Like I feel like I feel like we're gonna like this movie more once the other two are out. I really feel that way. Honestly, feel that way.
I wrote a quote down and it's from a critic. His name's Dustin Pittman. I don't know who he is, but I like this quote, so I wrote it down. His quote was this. He says, "With approximately 6 more hours to go, it's tough not to shudder at the sheer lengths director Peter Jackson is about to go to stretch this story into paper-thin taffy." And, like, honestly, I agree with him. Because I feel like this movie, whether it was fan service or from the Silmarillion or maybe it needed, whatever reason you want to give it, I felt like there was a lot going on that didn't really have to do with each other. And I felt like that's either going to play out really well, or by the third movie, we're looking at a Spider-Man 3. And I just felt like with the way that some of this stuff was handled, like, we'll see. Where I was interested in seeing what he was going to do with 2 or 3, I'm genuinely like, I don't know.
I'm not that afraid about it. I feel like the third one's going to feel more like Return of the King, or half of it is pretty much a battle. Yeah, which I can watch that forever.
And I feel like Peter Jackson...
Not if they do the battles like they did in this one, though. I want to see people in armor fighting. Let's do it.
Well, it's all been filmed, I think, so I don't know.
That's what I know.
I don't know if you're going to get that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was, though, when I went and looked at the dates today. It was 2013 and then 2014.
Yeah,
winter.
They pushed
it all back again?
Yeah, they pushed it back 6 months.
Did you see that? Like, yeah, it was like, yeah.
The second one's supposed to be this coming summer in 2013, except they push it back to a year from now. And you know they're going to push the third one back to a year after that
winter
one.
2013 and summer 2014. That's probably going to be
they can push the summer 2014 back to
doing
winter
what exactly? Like, what are they pushing them back for?
More CGI. I mean, ultimately, like, I don't feel like I wasted my money going to see it. I don't feel like I need to see it again. And I'm really like 2 or 3 movies in. We'll see.
Side note that I didn't mention that we talked about off mic is that I did see it in 3D, but not in the 48 frames, and that was slightly distracting to me. And I like 3D movies, and I watch 3D movies all the time and think they're awesome.
You don't say.
But I do think that this one, there was some really cool, because it was in 3D, scenes that just looked really neat and it was cool to watch, like the giant rock titan people scene.
What about the Warner Brothers sign coming apart at the beginning, which I'm like, well, this was clearly made for 3D.
Yeah. but I do think that there was just too much moving around for the CG to work without, and I'm assuming the 48 frames helped that, and that's what everyone says when I read some of the reviews. So I'm gonna go try to check it out if I can and see.
Well, it was he clearly made it for 48 frames.
Yeah, that's why I didn't take that as that's why I didn't take it as shot against.
That was his way for everyone.
Me.
He intended for everyone to see it that way. But
yeah, and if I don't mind seeing it in 2D in 24 because obviously 48 would look weird in 2D.
Yeah.
But that's why I was like, well, I'm not gonna go see it in 3D because if I can't see it in 48 in 3D, then
yeah, I'll wait till you see it in 48.
Free.
Let me know.
So I went and saw it. So.
Yeah. I can't really argue against free.
Right.
All right. So yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen The Hobbit, I mean, I guess go see it.
Definitely go see it twice.
Just. We'll see it once and see whether or not you care to see it twice.
See it twice.
And
or just read the book.
If you have seen The Hobbit, no, don't read the book because then this will just make the movie whatever. I mean, but the book was good. The book's good.
I think the parts that were in the book that were in the movie were freaking
spot
on.
The best parts of the movie.
Yeah, and they were even dialogue, like the one-liners were spot freaking on. I think he did an amazing job of adapting. Of course, obviously he added a lot of stuff to it, but the parts that were in the book that he put onto film were freaking just so accurate. I was so happy about that. Yeah. Go see it twice.
It's really worth for the Gollum scene alone.
Absolutely.
Just to see that is really worth it.
Yeah.
All right. So, and if you have seen it, I mean, we want to know what you thought about it. Okay. So, real quick, we're gonna get into trailers. So, Superman trailer, second one. Any thoughts on that?
School bus.
I hate Superman, but damn it, that was a pretty good trailer.
Yeah, I don't like.
God,
Superman,
I wanted to hate that trailer, but damn it, it was a good trailer.
But I'll be damned if I don't want to see it.
I hate Superman. I cannot express to you how much I hate that stupid character. But damn it, that trailer looks so good, dude. It really did. Better than Iron Man 3 trailer. That trailer sucked.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Neil, go ahead.
I still thought the trailer was stupid. I don't really understand.
No, it was I think the second Superman trailer was really good.
Like, what about it?
Well, awesome. I definitely like. Visually, I thought it was
visually agreed. But I even thought that from the first, the little bitty trailer when they showed him shooting off. I was like, that I kind of like, guys.
The scene with the bus,
but isn't that what he does?
The camera going down into the bus.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing that I was interested in the trailer, there was a scene where he's having a conversation with his dad about
don't save people.
Yeah, and I was like, that's...
Yeah, that was
I'm like,
interesting.
if that's an angle they play with in
Yeah,
that,
that'd
like,
be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Right, I feel like that is the only way you can do
like,
Superman in a way that's even passively interesting in 2013 or now. Like, that's the only way to do that. And I don't know. I just don't know if they have the ability to really pull it off in the way they want to. But visually, I didn't doubt that this movie's probably going to be something. I mean, I'm going to go see it. I just still think it's
that. It went from like, oh, Christopher Nolan's like help writing this and producing it. I'm interested, but I still don't know. To I will definitely go see it. I will at least go see it in the theater.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, like I'm not a big fan of Superman. I thought the last Superman movie was horrible.
Oh, that thing was a piece of shit.
That was pretty bad.
Even people like my wife who love Superman are like, that movie sucks.
She's like, that doesn't anything near Smallville.
Right.
Oh God, Jesus.
But yeah, it definitely interested me in a way that I...
Is that part of the setting up for Justice League too?
Nobody knows for sure. I mean, that's all speculation.
Is it though? Because I thought they had announced that other thing about the dude who's supposed to play Batman and stuff like that.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah.
No, that's all. I think that's all rumor and
not
speculation. They've said that they're going
true.
to make a Justice League movie, but I don't think there's much more.
I really hope that never happens, but okay.
It's so weird, like in this time, because 7 years ago we were looking forward to the Avengers and the sequels to all these comic book movies,
like, Avengers is never happening.
And now it's all here, and it's like, where does it end? Like, it's not going to end. Like, there might be a freaking Justice League movie. You're like, where the hell does it go? And then
you can be sure there's going to be a Justice League.
And then after that, it's like, once that movie comes out, it's like, okay, that's done. It's here. It's done. And like, no, there's more. Like, what more is there?
It's
real
answer
crazy.
Is
it's
we're
weird.
just going to have another rebooted of all these things again, and that's what.
Well, they're rebooting Batman, like that for sure. So they have said this is going to happen.
Which I know. I feel like you have to do that eventually. Like,
make it Batman Beyond.
If you're gonna do it. That would have been awesome, but it's not gonna happen.
But I mean, like, I think when they reboot really at this point, they're probably thinking in terms of how are these movies going to tie into a Justice League movie. Like,
that's why I'm wondering. I don't know. I wonder if Superman is like that same thing, because
I don't think they've come out and said it, but they would have to be kind of silly not to.
But then it just seems like this seems more in the same vein of the Dark Knight, like stylistically from like that, like, you know, dark or like, you know, that world.
Right.
Which I feel like if you're gonna do something with Batman now, everything just has to be different. Like,
well, and that's the thing about the Avengers, that tonally all those movies are the same.
Yeah, and it worked for me, like, because like, even the bad ones worked for me, you know, because of that, like what they were doing, and it didn't seem weird in the Avengers when they were all together. You're like, oh yeah.
I mean, unless they're gonna take all these characters and make them dark and gritty, and it's like a dark and gritty Aquaman
would be amazing.
So it'd be like a bunch of Batmans running
Showtime show.
So we'll see.
So y'all are like Superman trailer? Hell yeah, right? That's what y'all.
I really like this.
I didn't want to like it, but I mean, it was
really
a good
like
trailer.
The shot of like the camera on the bus and the bus going to the water.
Yeah,
that was a good. There looks like. I mean, and it's got a lot of actors that I really like in it. It's got a good cast. It's got a good solid cast.
Damn it!
It's set up to do some cool things. The worst thing about it is the fact that it's about Superman.
Yeah,
literally,
that is
if it wasn't about Superman, we'd be all sitting and be like, hell
yeah. That is
yeah.
what's keeping me out of the theater.
No,
is that Superman will be in that movie?
Yeah.
He's just a shitty superhero.
Yeah.
Or he's the shitty superhero.
It worked when it came out.
But even then, there's
like in the 40s or whenever it was. It doesn't work now.
There's a scene like, okay, it's in the trailer, and there's a scene where he's on fire, and it looked like crap.
Yeah, I was wondering why he was on fire. I was like, Superman's. Why is he on fire?
But everything else looked like CGI.
Why was he in handcuffs? Why was he in handcuffs?
That just seems irrelevant.
Is that a comic book thing?
He breaks out of handcuffs a lot. That does happen.
Like, how did he get into handcuffs in the first? Like, you're Superman. What the hell are you doing? Get out of the handcuffs, man.
All right, so does anybody have anything else to say about the Superman trailer?
No, I think the movie's gonna be better than we probably give it credit
for.
It's
probably gonna be good.
But probably mostly
Zack Snyder scares.
It's a visual thing. I think it's visually gonna be cool.
Probably has very little to do with the writing of the script. Is a good thing.
But that probably has a lot to do with why we probably are interested in seeing it. From what we saw, I feel like that. Yeah. Because when you can do a vertical slice like that on a trailer, if you can do the visual thing right, then.
Right.
Yeah.
The Sucker Punch was awesome.
And it also looks...
Sucker Punch. I so actually like watching... I like watching that movie, and it is so bad.
I tried it for 5 minutes. I was like, no.
She has, like, cell phone keychain, like, charms on her pistols. And, that movie's so bad.
I thought for a CGI, for a very, like, CGI movie, I thought 300, it looked good. I mean, I enjoyed 300.
And that was and that was for its time doing something different. Now movies have done that same thing to death.
Well,
now.
that's like
that was a fun midnight release.
Time. I mean, everybody's like,
Yeah.
You know, the slow.
I actually didn't like 300. Like, I actually didn't like the movie, but visually, I really thought
300.
it was awesome.
The midnight release for 300 was fun. That was probably one of my most favorite midnight releases.
That is
300.
such a dude bro
movie. There were so many. I went there. It was me and my dad and like a theater full of like other dudes.
That's like the
people ran out of that theater screaming and running up and down the hallway.
That was
myself included.
That was a fun.
Is like the Call of Duty of movies when I think of Dude Bros. That is like right up there.
That's fine because the first Modern Warfare was really good.
Yeah,
but all these reiterations of 300 suck.
Yep.
All right, so the new Star Trek trailer.
What is the subtitle for that movie?
Into Darkness.
Voiceover alone had me creaming my pants.
If they would have had the voiceover like strictly over just a black screen,
I'm like, what movie is this? I want to see this.
So
it's Benedict Cumberbatch and his voice is the voice of God.
8-9 minute. It's pretty long.
Yeah, I heard there's a long one.
So yeah, we went to IMAX and it was really weird. So we all walk in. We started the movie before we walked to the theater. You know, we were by ourselves and everything. And me and Jessica were looking at it, we're like, what the hell is this movie? Did we pick the wrong movie? Because it's not like a regular trailer, you know? Like, we were like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And it shows some dude from Doctor Who and stuff like that. And we're like, what the hell is this? Is this like some advertisement from Doctor Who thing? We didn't know what it was. And we keep watching it. And it was weird because it, even from that moment, had us all like, like we were watching this. What the hell is this? Didn't have any idea it was Star Trek. Because I don't read or keep up with any of that. And it goes for a while without you even thinking it has anything to do with Star Trek right before they show McCoy or Bones or whatever. So, I was just hooked, and the 3D in this trailer on the IMAX theater was like a whole type of new 3D, like the way they were filming it that I hadn't seen before. Mm-hmm. Like when they're showing like the embers and stuff like that in the volcano, it was like surrounding the whole theater. And BJ, who works in the damn movie theater, was just like, "The hell is this? Like, why does it look this good?" It was all crisp. Things were moving around. There was a shit ton of stuff going on screen at the same time moving. And it just looked god awfully perfect. Like, it was so impressive.
Well, I've said, you know, like, I'm not a big proponent of 3D, but like J.J. Abrams, not only does he get technology, he gets how to use it really, really well and a really good story.
And obviously, he knows how to surround himself with people who can project that vision very, 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 very
and so,
well.
like, and with Star Trek, like with the trailer, and even with the first Star Trek movie, like, just to clarify from the previous review of The Hobbit, I am not against using CGI.
Yeah.
There are sometimes you have to use it.
Yeah.
Again, the Balrog scene with Gandalf in the first one, like, there's no other way to do that.
Yeah, I feel like Avatar kind of had to use CGI at some point.
There are things in the Hobbit where you had to use it. And I feel like J.J. Abrams, I mean, really, even in Super 8, I feel like he used it appropriately.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he produced that, but you could tell, like, he had his hands. He was very heavy producing it.
Because his name was going to be thrown.
Yeah. And the cool thing about Star Trek, again, is there's a lot of, there's a lot of sets which build, like, a lot of authenticity. I mean, when you have a big shot of the thing, you obviously have to do the CGI, but there's a lot of sets. Well, there will, of course, be a lot of lens flares.
Yeah. Well, that movie had a lot of
I
trouble.
love lens
it
flares.
had a lot of trouble. So that movie's been taking a while, and but I liked the first movie a lot.
I love the first movie.
Despite the fact that
First Star Trek was
my
so
dad is
damn good.
super Trekky. Like we have Star Trek encyclopedias and stuff, but
Did he like it?
No.
Okay.
And mostly because it just wasn't the Star Trek I think he grew up with, which it's not. It is made.
My dad liked it okay.
Which I think as a movie, my
loved
dad
it,
could
crap.
kind of enjoy it, but he was just so in the Star Trek that I think Star Trek is more like submarine, slow space battle, weird brain thing. And this is more like action-paced, J.J. Abrams type stuff. And I loved it. Like, I felt like, okay, how are you going to get people now to enjoy Star Trek? This is exactly how you're going to get people to enjoy Star Trek. Flip some things around. Actors are all really young and cool and stuff like that. Yeah, and aesthetically, I just like the way everything looks.
And I feel like he cast it very well.
Yeah.
And then the Benedict Cumberbatch voiceover.
Dude, that was
I
the
am
best.
just like, oh my, that will be the voice of Smaug, and I'm so excited for that crap.
That, to me, that was like whenever, for The Dark Knight, everybody found out that Heath Ledger was playing the Joker.
Yeah.
And it was like a unanimous sigh of just, are you kidding me?
It was.
And I feel like it was... Heath Ledger's a really, really good actor.
Anne Hathaway shit too.
But I just felt... Do it.
That wasn't Anne Hathaway as her name. They did that shit too when she was McCollum.
But I feel like at the time people were just like Heath Ledger because they only knew him from Night Tale. It wasn't until he played the Joker and people were like, wait a second, maybe he is good. Let's go look at some other stuff he's done.
Knight's Tale.
That
I love that movie.
But they showed the picture of his face, and you were like, wow, that looks pretty good because it was just his face.
It wasn't
a face coming out.
It was no green hair, yeah.
Right. It was just like the smile, and then they had the trailer over the bat coming up. Yeah. And it was just his voice.
Just the dialogue, yeah.
It was just his voice.
I was like, oh,
shit. And I got chills in my spine. I was like, that's it. He's got it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you saw him, and then, it was even more so. I Am Legend.
The bank scene, yeah.
The I Am Legend, and then I stood up in the middle of the theater after the preview of I Am Legend, and I gave it a round of applause.
You're like, yes!
But I haven't felt anything like that since then until I saw this trailer and he started talking.
Yeah.
And then just seeing him. Now, I don't like how they have him in, like, the prison. There's a scene where, because they did it in Dark Knight, they did it in James Bond. That's like the new thing is to catch they did it in the Avengers.
He wants to get caught. He wants to get caught,
and then he's gonna break out. Yeah, like that's going to happen in this movie, and I feel like that's
a really
cliche.
easy way to show like, oh, this person's smarter than you.
Right.
Yeah,
that's a cliche. Like we need to let's.
That is good. That's good. Since the Dark Knight's been overused.
Yeah, but it's also that's like a big comic book like slide. That's always been a thing.
It's a huge thing. It's a cliche.
It's a crappy cliche. I agree. I don't disagree.
Let's.
It's funny. I think the Dark Knight started the fact that is now a cliche because it really wasn't before.
Yeah, I feel like you've seen it in a lot of the blockbusters.
I think it's the villain archetype is what makes that the one they're using, and I think the Dark Knight just did it best.
As a twist, it's like he outsmarted us. You always oh shit.
Yeah.
But in like a few more movies, you're gonna be like, oh, not again.
Yeah. No, I mean I actually did that in James Bond, despite the fact that I liked it. But yeah. Right, I felt that way. No, I mean, like, despite the fact I liked that.
Yeah. I was definitely. But I think, and like the colors. Okay, if we're talking about colors,
that red forest thing
again in IMAX 3D it was just like all those little like cornfield red and white things were just like busting out, and he was like doing this thing where McCoy's running towards the camera and they were shooting arrows, but it wasn't like shitty they're gonna fly at you, but it was like they were bending like out and stuff like that, and like just visually like, and again. Me seeing that and then going into the Lord of the Rings, which was weird, which why the color palette did stand out to me. Not for in the same orange and blue thing, but as there was like every possible damn color in the world in a thing that is usually just about space in gray and white. But there was just like all the colors.
Right.
All the colors. And it was awesome to watch. And just well done. And I hate watching trailers because I always feel like it spoils something, but I couldn't stop watching it because there was so much pretty shit going on the screen.
It is, and I've watched it multiple times.
I haven't watched it
just to hear his, whatever he does. Like,
just watch. Let's just watch an episode of Sherlock, man.
Dude, yeah, I mean, he's just
watching him play Sherlock Holmes is like,
I love a good villain, and not even like, and I think the best kind of villain is whenever they're like, you can like. They're not really a villain because you can kind of see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Like in The Watchmen, in the graphic novel, not the movie. He was like that, like Hannibal Lecter, kind of Kevin Spacey in Seven had a little bit of that going on. But every now and then you just want. I mean, really, and even Heath Ledger had a little bit of that in the Dark Knight, right? The Dark Knight, sorry, not the Dark Knight Rises. But I do feel like every now and then, like you just want to see a bad dude. Yeah. Like I just give me an archetype villain, and
everybody thinks he's going to be Khan. I actually watched The Wrath of Khan on Netflix the other day. Have you guys ever seen that? The Wrath of Khan?
I've seen multiple times.
Dude, that's really good.
Movie's
it's him really good. Someone else they're suggesting, and I'm not that big into Star Trek, so I don't know.
I haven't read anything about the movie, so I don't know even what people are saying.
Well, people are saying people thinking he's going to be Khan.
They're doing that whole Spock thing, it looks like, again.
The hand on the glass
thing. I mean, all the him Spock, at least something happening. I mean, from what that was a pretty damn long trailer.
Yeah, when they showed the hand on the glass, everybody was like, okay,
I'm pretty sure I know
Wrath
where this is going, but
But you know that they originally were trying to get Benicio del Toro to play that part, which would have been fine because he's a great actor. But I just when I saw that trailer,
I'm kind of glad they didn't.
They got the right guy.
I'm just really super excited for this movie in general because I feel like the first Star Trek movie just did a good job of setting up like the characters in that same way that like they don't have to explain that shit now. They don't have to do any origin story type stuff.
Well, J.J. Abrams came out and said that the reason, or he's being quoted saying something similar, saying that the reason they did the time thing.
Oh yeah, so they don't have to fight any of the fans.
So that they can create stories within their own universe.
It's a smart little
thing to do. And the thing is, usually whenever you do something like that, like you create a plot device for mildly superficial reasons, it usually doesn't work. And I felt like in that movie, it worked.
And they got to use
well.
Leonard Nimoy still.
Yeah,
and you know what I mean. Like it's.
Well, the thing was, I'm glad they had Leonard Nimoy. Like it made sense in the story. It wasn't just like, oh, look at Leonard Nimoy. It's like, oh, I get why Leonard Nimoy is here.
And that's awesome for that reason. And no, it was just, I felt like they actually did take a lot of care to not really break too much of like canon type stuff, and like they were pretty respectful to a lot of it, but took a new take, and we're going in a direction to just make new awesome shit that people would want to watch.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. When is that coming out?
May.
That's too far away.
It's always too far away, but it'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, it'll be here before Hobbit Part 2, right? So.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Seems like everything will.
So yeah, let us know what you think about the Star Trek trailer. That's one of those movies that. I mean, obviously, there were people that didn't like it, and there were people who watched the older Star Trek stuff that didn't like it. But I felt like that movie was a lot better received by older fans than a lot of remakes.
For something as big as Star Trek,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Though that's like like rebooting Star Wars. You know what I mean? It's in the same way though, and that worked out really well.
Anyway, yeah. So let us know what you think about that. Next podcast, I mean, Django Unchained coming out Tuesday. That was my movie.
And I do think I don't like Game of the Year shit, but I do think we should talk about like at least like one or two of our favorite, like just more. Fun
one Game
things.
of the Year, which I was very excited to hear, was the Walking Dead game.
Yeah, from VGAs, but yeah, it did. It deserved it a lot. And they also
I'm glad they didn't go like with the whole Call of Duty is the best shooter.
Actually, VGAs
gave it to Borderlands 2. I was like, thank you for being sort of fair this year.
One of the first or second years that the VGAs was out, they gave it to Madden. That's how far they've come in trying.
Yeah.
But no, actually, it inspired me to go play The Walking Dead. But I think we should talk about just like one or two of like our most like just fun games, because it's hard to be like, let's compare like Borderlands 2 to Uncharted, and just weird things. But just saying like, what we have more fun with? It would be cool to just talk about that, just to have that like, because it's like there's a lot of shit that came out this year that I feel like. We had a pretty good year. People bitch about a lot of stuff, but like despite all the sequels, damn sequels were really, really good, and we just had good stuff.
And it's interesting in games how that works, because I feel like in movies, sequels are like. I feel like in movies when you just take the same elements that were good in the first one and you over pimp them, it's not good. But in games, that works differently.
Yeah, because in games, once you have like the mechanics down, you can start working on some of the other things, like refining those mechanics, or making story elements, or doing things like that. That just like you can't. It's not the same thing in movies. And that games are really cool like that. And just the indie game scene has blew up so big because now there are like small studios, and because the tools are so much easier, can make a lot bigger games. And then there's like really small games like FTL or something ridiculous like Space Team that we were playing. Then there's stuff still like, that Mark of the Ninja game, or like these middle ground, like they're kind of indie, but they're kind of not. Right. And then there's shit like Halo 4 that's just like extravagance, all types of money. And it's just, and then something like Call of Duty, which is just like using engine tech from years ago. Yep. Still gonna sell more than everybody else. Yep. And then Angry Birds Star Wars, that's like actually awesome, and like just weird things like that. Like there's so many games that come out this year that people don't appreciate.
Mania.
God, I hate that game.
Anyways, so let us know what you thought about The Hobbit, Star Trek, Superman. What games you like this year? Like I said, when we come back, hopefully our next podcast will be on Django Unchained, because that has been
I'm actually super excited about that. Speaking of villains, I think that's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He does his stuff very well. Anyways, all right, guys. Let us know what you think. And, have a good holidays.
We love you.